as the Phillies lead the Nats 4-0. Travis Jankowski hit a bomb to give the Phillies a 3-0 lead, and that's kind of where we are to start things off for the Phils today. But we got to go back to last night and the circus that happened at Citizens Bank Park. This whole thing with the pitchers getting checked is an absolute disaster. Major League Baseball, perfect for them. Hey, let's see how we can screw the game up even more. They got pitchers walking off the field, flapping their hats, pulling down their pants, undoing their belt buckles. I mean, holy moly. And as much as I understand, like Joe Girardi looked like a clown show last night. I mean, come on, Joe. Really? Joe Girardi should be ashamed of himself today. And the whole process, before the game, he's asked, are you going to ask the umpires to go check on the pitchers? Oh, that's silly. I wouldn't do that unless it was warranted. The first game that he got an opportunity, he asked the umpire to go out there and ask if Max Scherzer, if they could check for a banned substance on Max Scherzer. I love Scherzer's answer. I'd have to be a complete idiot to go out there the first night with something on my hat or something on my belt. I mean, if anything, I see Girardi in this situation just trying to get Scherzer out of his rhythm because his team yet again couldn't get anything going. So in that aspect, the gamesmanship of it, fine. But if you want this now to be gamesmanship where you are the manager and you are sending the umpire out there to try to stall the game, get the pitcher out of his rhythm, baseball's got to come up with something better than this. Look, it's turned into an epic joke already that the whole situation, I love what Chris Bryant said last night. Shame on us as the hitters who have essentially allowed this to happen. You know, this whole notion that now, listen, the hitters don't have a lot of room to talk either because they've been cheating for years too. Steroids, corked bats, yada, yada, yada. So now when they're on the other side of this, they're being made out to be the victim. You've cheated for 120 years. Now the pitchers are getting caught and you don't like it. And I mean, this whole notion of, well, they've got to come to a happy medium. They've got to find some substance that the pitchers can use. How about no? How about get out there and pitch? The ball is slipping out of your hands. Are you kidding me? The ball is slipping out of your hands? Did you have some sort of substance in high school? Did the ball slip out of your hands when you were 18? Or did it just start slipping out of your hands when you reached a certain level? Hey, man, isn't that ball slippery? Not really. Isn't that ball slippery? Oh, you mean you want me to cheat? Everybody's doing it. It's funny. The ball didn't slip out of your hands when you were at a certain age group or a certain level, and then all of a sudden, miraculously, a grown man can't grip the baseball the same way he did when he was an amateur. It's quite interesting how that all works. So the whole situation's a mess. The whole game is absolutely, look, we're complaining, oh, there's not enough offense, there's not enough this, there's not enough that. People are striking out too much. The game is, now you got guys walking off the field, they're throwing their hats on the ground, they're undoing their pants. I mean, you got the manager sending the umpires as if the game wasn't slow enough and didn't have enough problems. I got a great idea. Let's slow it down even more. Yeah, that'll work. Hey, look, I'm all for the fact of getting cheating out of the game. But now they're like, well, we've always been using rosin and sunscreen. That's something we've been using for a while. Like, can't we come to a happy medium and find something that we could use? Chris Bryant, though, last night really broke it down and said, shame on us. Shame on us that we have allowed this to happen. That we kind of, listened to what these pitchers were saying. And the pitchers were saying what? That, we need this for grip. We don't want to, lose control of the ball. That is a crock, if I've ever heard it. if you need to have rosin and sunscreen on your fingers to control the ball, you're probably not qualified to be pitching at the big league level. Now, Joe Girardi last night, look, I think Girardi played this ridiculously, considering what he said at the beginning of the day that, hey, I'm not gonna look at things. That'd be silly. The first game he does it. His reasoning as to why he elected to take a look at Max Scherzer last night.
I've seen Max a long time, since 2010. Obviously, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. But I've never seen him wipe his head like he was doing tonight, ever. Going like this, right? So it was suspicious for me. He did it about 4 or 5 times. It was suspicious. I didn't mean to offend anyone. I just got to do what's right for our club.
It was suspicious that he put his hand through his hair. All right. Well, the floodgates have opened on this one. He put his hand through his hair. And then Scherzer responded by saying, hey, look, I didn't have enough grip. My hand had rosin on it, so I had to put my hand through my head to try to get a little moisture on my hand. Let the games begin. Is this what baseball is really hoping for? Dave Martinez, the Nationals manager, after the game, he was asked about it because him and Girardi almost got into a WWE steel cage match over it, said this.
I thought the umpires did a good job with it. I really did. I mean, it's part of the game now, and they did their due diligence. So as far as Joe's concerned, I think he's got to answer the tough questions about that. I don't need to answer that.
So the referees, or the umpires, did a good job, he's saying. Yeah, they did what they're being told to do. Hey, when they walk off the field, just periodically go and take a look at them, which was supposed to be the gentleman's agreement between the two teams, is let the umpires handle this. We're not going to go out there and get this all, taken care of, turn this into a sideshow. And then the first night, they turned it into a complete sideshow. I mean, Martinez, you got him and Scherzer essentially challenging Girardi, and then the inning later, Scherzer stares him down like he's getting ready to cut a WWE promo, and you got Girardi coming out of the dugout like he's on top of the world. Come on, let's do this. I mean, what is this, the UFC? Was this Bellator? For God's sakes. I mean, if that's the entertainment value you're looking for, here's Scherzer after the game.
The only part that was really sweaty enough on me to be able to grab any type of moisture was on my hair. It wasn't a warm night's night, so the back of my neck really wasn't that sweaty when I tried to get there. And so for me, the only body part that actually had enough sweat on it was my hair. So, that's fortunate tonight. But, I mean, this is going to be dangerous when, you're in a cold game and you have no sweat. What will we do then?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about this. I didn't realize that you needed to have that level of moisture in your hand to be able to pitch. I don't recall ever a time where I'm like, you know what? My hand is so dry that I can't grip the baseball. I mean, I have a baseball in my hand almost every single day of the week. I've never said, you know what? I've got to get sweat on my hand to throw this baseball. And yet, one of the best in baseball, Max Scherzer, is saying, I can't do what I typically do, so much so that I had to put my hand through my head last night to get it done. Girardi said it. We're talking about a Hall of Famer. I got to admit, since the Sixers playoff run, and with 3 games on Peacock and a couple of games out in Los Angeles, I haven't watched a lot of the Phillies in recent days. And you know what? I'm quite okay with it. And then last night, all right, Sixers are done. Western Conference game starts a little later. I'm going to tune into the Phils. Haven't seen them in a while. West Coast trip, Peacock. All right, here we go. Phil's game's on regular television. And that's what I get. I get Sideshow Bob putting his hand through his hair and the manager of the Phillies telling the I keep calling him the referee, the umpire to go check him. And then the poor guy is out on the mound. He's taking his hat off. He throws it on the ground. He's unbuckling his pants. You know, who was the pitcher? Sergio Romo. He dropped his pants. This is what we got. Pitchers dropping their pants. Is this the baseball? I mean, we've all kind of admitted baseball has changed. I don't know if for the better. But now you're adding this into the mix as well. It's a joke. Baseball really, really needs to figure out how to fix this. You cannot expect to go through the rest of this season with this happening every night. Now, if you're going to say, look, you walk off the mound, not the umpires. Don't make the umpires be a part of this. You want to do this and clean your game up, you need to pay an independent person to stand there on both dugout steps, and that's who you go to and look at. Not have these sideshows where they're standing on the third baseline between the innings. Hey, can I check your belt, please? Hey, sir, can you, Zach Wheeler, he's complying. He's not that he did anything wrong, but it's like, hey, man, can I feel the brim of your hat? Can you lift your hat up? I mean, what's next? Hey, can I put my fist through your hair? Can I take a hair sample? You know, what kind of substance do you have? Well, his gel product's not as good as mine. He's using bedhead. I mean, what the heck was that last night? 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. It was appalling, really. I mean, as a baseball fan, it was embarrassing to watch. You got Ranger Suarez, the reliever, those guys. Now, they're talking during the broadcast last night. Who was doing it? It was McCarthy and Kruk last night. And they're sitting there talking about what are you going to do with the closer? Because he doesn't come off the field. He's done. I mean, you have to check him before. You have a labor fight that is about to happen in baseball. And I'll tell you what, if you are baseball, you better be extremely fearful of another work stoppage. We haven't had one since 1994 in Major League Baseball. But I would be pretty concerned right now if I'm Major League Baseball, the MLB Players Association, their relationship is awful. And watching what happened last night is just another layer. Look what's going on today, by the way. This game is going on, and not one person cares, really. You've got the GM and the Nats before the game today doing a radio spot. And says it's embarrassing for Girardi. It's embarrassing for the Phillies. It's embarrassing for baseball. He calls Girardi a con man. He says he's a con artist. He's been doing that for years on television. He says, I know him well. I know him well. Yeah, I know the type. Now, Mike Rizzo, who's the GM, he says Girardi's actions were gamesmanship. And I think he's right. You know, he wanted to, in my opinion, Scherzer is basically mowing his team down, dominating the game, and he wants to get him out of his rhythm. You got the manager checking Scherzer's head on the mound as if they're looking for head lice last night. Seriously, Scherzer is bent down, leaning over to the umpire, and he's fingering through his hair. It's like, are you kidding me? These are Manfred's rules, Rob Manfred. And that's exactly what Scherzer said. Go ask him, he says, I've said enough. These guys this is not going to end well. This is not going to end well. And there's not one part of me that says, hey, man, the pitchers need to be helped out here. Like, hey, they're getting treated wrong. I mean, I think Kruk said it last night during the broadcast. He was quite clear, like, hey, I think this, because he's a hitter, and he's saying if the hitters are getting taken advantage of, then you have, the opposite side of things where the pitchers are like, really? You're doing a strip search like I'm going through the TSA at the airport? No, this isn't going to end well. 609-403-0973, text board. Mike, just wondering if pitchers say they need rosin or sweat to get a grip on the ball, aren't those two things opposite of each other? Rosin is used to dry the hands, sweat would moisten them, just saying. Apparently, they've used the rosin as like a grip, and they use the sweat to kind of, I don't know what they use the sweat for, to be honest with you, but you're right. The rosin is like they've been using this spider tech. If you've been hearing this recently, this is like came out, and quite frankly, I didn't pay a lot of attention to it because, quite frankly, was paying attention to the Sixers and really don't care about this kind of crap. But now they put it at the forefront where they're checking the pitchers. But Garrett Cole, he was asked about it. This whole spider tech stuff. It's a sticky substance, so the rosin is supposed to give you better grip on the ball. And I'm imagining the water. They don't use water. They were using sunscreen, apparently. It was a sunscreen rosin mix, and that mixture would give them a better grip on the ball, and that spider tech substance was giving them the spin rate. It allows the ball, and you've been hearing this term spin rate a lot. Like they're just manufacturing, spin rate. So that is the big word in the pitching world right now. Spin rate, they are basically manufacturing pitchers and teaching them to throw with spin rate, which I don't have a problem with. But you're manufacturing it, and if you're not, essentially you're teaching them something. All right, now you've been taught something that you're really not mastering. So now you need a banned substance to make your spin rate plausible. So they've come up with this, in the past, you would use a mixture of like rosin and suntan lotion. And I guess those two mixed together would give you, kind of a sticky substance that your hand can get a grip of the ball and get added pressure that the spin would be added, at the end of it, instead of like a normal, you would have extra. So now they have this spider tech, which apparently is a substance. I mean, imagine like sticking some sort of like, I don't know, glue on your hand and just, hey, I'm going to use this to get a better grip of the ball and then zip it off my fingertips, and that'll give the ball extra spin when it leaves my hand. So, yeah, I got to be honest with you. I'm not saying that the rosin stuff doesn't work. Obviously, it does. They've been using it for a while, but they've now, look, you give me an inch, I take a mile. So I found, this is pretty good. Oh, now I can do this, and I can advance that. I can keep going more and more and more and get better, and get more spin, more spin, more spin. I did a lot of pitching. I never put rosin on my hand ever. I mean, that doesn't mean anything. It just, I never thought of it. It wasn't like, oh, you know what? My hand's really, I got to get more grip in my hand. I think the baseball is the material that it's made out of, is, I never had a problem gripping the baseball. Speaking of the Phillies today, they lead 4-0, and on the mound is one Vince Velasquez. So we can expect an implosion in about the next 10 minutes, I would imagine. He's pitching well right now. Right? Jankowski, by the way, I think just doubled. So he's got a dinger and a double. Now let's see if he gets picked off second base. Hitting a dinger is one way to keep him off the bases. Now he's on second. Let's see if the catcher goes running out to second base and picks him off. Sports Bash brought to you by Matt Blatt Kia. Matt Blatt, they want to get you approved today. Matt Blatt Kia, Black Horse Bike, Egg Harbor Township. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Download the free mobile app now, and you can listen to the Sports Bash on the go, take the show on the go, and get all of our content on the Phillies, Eagles, Sixers, and Flyers. Plus, you can watch the show live at 97.3 ESPN through Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. It is the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. right, 225 on a Wednesday. I had to look at the big board to see what day it is. Phillies in a day game today. Vince Velasquez with a base hit RBI single, and Phillies lead it 5-0 today. So that'll get the bet within a game of 500 if they can hold this game. They lead the Nats 5-0. Much needed offensive explosion today. Speaking of the Phillies game last night, I got to take Girardi to task on another thing, because they start the inning off with a double from Alec Boehm last night, who's been on fire recently. He's really starting to hit the ball a lot better, seems to be a lot more comfortable and confident up at the plate. But he hits a double to start the game, the ninth off last night. And for whatever now I can't take Girardi to task. I'm sorry. He was ejected from the game. So this isn't Girardi's fault, unless, of course, he's somewhere down the hallway, or I'm sure they can communicate in some fashion. I don't know. Does the manager, does he have his cell phone on him in the middle of the game? I always wondered that. We're so attached to our phones and stuff like that. Does the guy have the cell phone in his pocket in case there's an emergency or something? Probably not. But in this instance, is Girardi in the back texting, who's the Joe Thompson, is it? Was he the bench coach who took over last night? And in that situation, you've got Alec Boehm at the plate. There is absolutely, positively no argument that could be made. Rob Thompson. There is absolutely, positively no argument that you can give me with Brad Miller, by the way, a left-handed hitter facing a left-handed pitcher. There's no argument you can give me why Brad Miller is getting a chance to swing the bat last night in the ninth with Boehm on. Because he flies out to center. Boehm can't tag on the play. The fly out's too short. Now, did you ever see anything like this before, by the way? Torreyes gets hit by the pitch, and the Phillies challenged it. Can anybody for the life of me tell me why the Phillies would challenge their own player getting hit by the pitch? Other than, even McCarthy couldn't figure it out last night. The only thing they could really come up with was they rather Torreyes up at the plate than Max Verling. Now, Verling ends up hitting a infield single. If Miller just puts the bunt down, Boehm is over to third, and then you have Torreyes who gets hit by the pitch. Verling hits a little infield single to the pitcher, right past the pitcher. That would have been enough to get Boehm over to third, home to score, and you tie that game up. And then Herrera flies out to left. Hoskins does Hoskins-like stuff. I know he had a home run last night, but he had a chance to do something there, and I didn't expect him to do anything at all except for ground out to short, which is exactly what he did. But that game was poorly managed in the ninth inning last night. I don't understand. I'm trying to look through the box score, too. I was thinking to myself, and again, I didn't watch I was flipping back and forth with the basketball game. So I'm thinking at times, why aren't they using a pinch hitter in any of these spots here? The only hitters they used last night were Jankowski and Williams, and then Verling came in. So I don't know who else was not used. But I guess Verling, who was hitting for, he was the pinch hitter for Alvarado. Williams hit in the seventh inning, and the other pinch hitter they used, which was Jankowski, hit in the fourth. So they had nobody else available to hit in that inning. I don't know. Well, the result is they lose 3-2. And the result of that is that they fall to 34-36, which is exactly the same record as the Washington Nationals. Now, these two teams are going in action right now. It is 5-0 Phillies. And why is this, I don't want to say important, because quite frankly, I can't sit here on June the 23rd and tell you I have any faith that the Phillies are going to make the playoffs, but they are 4 games back. The Braves are 4 games back. The Nationals are 4 games back. The Phillies play the Nationals today. Now, the game is in the 5th, and Velasquez is pitching, so you know any sort of disaster can still happen, even though they're winning 5-0. I will not sit here and say I feel comfortable. The Mets, you play for 4 in New York starting tomorrow. A sweep, you're in first place. You're tied, depending on what happens today and tonight for the Mets. So, do I feel confident? No. I don't understand. I get it. They can't just sit here and start making moves. They can't sit here and just start trading guys in June. They can't sit here and start just moving guys, April and May. You got to do your evaluation period. I hope Dave Dombrowski has some sort of plan that underlines, we talk about what the Sixers are going through. The Sixers have had the same core group of guys for 3 seasons now, 3 playoffs. Now, Ben Simmons was hurt in last year's playoffs, so it's hard to kind of factor that in. I don't think they were winning with Ben. Put it this way. I know they weren't winning against Boston last year with Ben Simmons just because of Ben Simmons. I mean, people could say, well, look what he did this year. What he did this year has nothing to do with what he did the previous years. But that being said, the core group of these 3 guys, the guys that were singled out yesterday by Daryl Morey, Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris. Well, I'm not sitting here and telling you it's time to get rid of all 3 of those guys and start over. That's not what I'm saying. But that core has not got it done. When you think about that core, they have just not got it done. What did Bruce Bowen was on today with Greeny, and he brought that up, and he said, look, Brett Brown looks pretty good right now. He's probably watching what the Sixers are going through and saying, see, I told you. And this isn't to suggest that Brett Brown was the coach of the year. They won a lot of games with Brett Brown, 50 games, 52 games, won a playoff series, went to the 7th game of another playoff series. And everybody was like, during the regular season, oh, man, look at Doc Rivers. Look how much different this team is. See what coaching does? And what are we doing? We're going right back to blaming the coach. Oh, Doc Rivers had a tough series. He was bad. How about this? The core group is the same. We've blamed the coach for 4 seasons. We're now blaming another coach 1 season in. We've blamed 1 GM, 2 GMs, 3 GMs, 4 GMs. They're on their 5th GM, right? They're on their 5th GM. We've blamed every single one of them. Oh, Hinkie made all these mistakes. He didn't know what he was doing. He made so many mistakes. All right, he's out. They finally got rid of Hinkie. That's what they needed to do. He was a scam artist. Get rid of him. They bring in Colangelo. He stunk. Colangelo's terrible. He was horrible. Colangelo, it was his fault. Colangelo's gone. Brett Brown takes over as the GM. Oh, he was terrible. He messed up. It was terrible what he did. And by the way, I agree. Brett Brown, the GM, was not very good. Well, that was a hard one. That was the Bridges deal. But Bridges is playing well. Zaire Smith obviously stunk. The difference was they got the pick in the deal to get Tobias Harris. That said, they went to Elton Brand. Oh, Elton Brand, he was terrible. Oh, Elton Brand gave these horrible contracts. Well, we loved him when he pulled the trigger and got Jimmy Butler. We loved him when he pulled the trigger and got Tobias Harris. But as soon as the team on the court started to fail, oh, man, Elton Brand doesn't know what he's doing. So it's been 5 GM's fault, 2 coaches now, right? Do I have my math right on this? 5 GMs, we're on to the 2nd coach. It's all their fault. First and foremost, but we're still not ready to blame the core group of players ahead of those guys. Hey, look, sure, Doc Rivers, he's on my list, but he's not ahead of Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid. No way. Try it. It's liberating. I promise you. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. 97.3 ESPN. Today, the Phillies are in action. We've also, we'll get Mike McGarry's thoughts on the game from last night, today, and what's next for the Sixers now. How do they pick up the pieces? I want to hear his reaction to Daryl Morey's comments from yesterday. Does he get the vibe that something big will happen? McGarry, who is live in Philly at the Phillies game with a live check-in, he will join me next here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. 240 Sports Bash, Mike McGarry. I think live in Philly for the Phillies and the Nationals currently, where, well, the Nationals have 2 on, nobody out. They've already scored a run. That's the Vince Velasquez that I know. 5-1 Phillies, but don't get comfortable as McGarry is live in Philly to give us some thoughts on what happened last night, what's going on today, and also we'll kind of reset some Sixers things for you. What's going on, Michael?
Hey, how are you? You're absolutely right. We're getting the full Vinny Velasquez experience here. Perfect 9 up and 9 down through 3 innings, and now all of a sudden hitting a wall here in the 4th.
I mean, 76 pitches through the 5th, and this is unbelievable, but nobody's checked him yet. Now, were you there last night when that all went down?
Yes, I was, and Vinny did get checked. He got checked coming off the mound.
Oh, geez, that error right there. Holy mackerel.
Right, that's not a good sign right there, what just happened. Yes, I was here for last night, and, we had some ramifications for that this morning. Nationals Mike Rizzo calling Joe Girardi a con man. So the sticky gate goes to another level today.
You mentioned they're all getting checked. I guess they're getting checked periodically, but I meant that no one has actually said, hey, this guy's pitching so well that I need you to go out there and go look, much like Girardi. I think that was the whole thing. Wasn't there supposed to be some sort of gentleman's agreement that they weren't going to do what Girardi did? And Girardi said pregame that that's silly. I'm not going to do that.
Right, absolutely. They told the starters before the game that the umpires were going to check them twice, after the first inning and probably after the second or third, and the relievers were all going to get checked once after their half inning of work. Girardi went above and beyond last night by kind of going out and asking the umpires to check Max Scherzer. It seems to me, my take on it is that it shows just kind of how desperate maybe Girardi is. He's trying, and obviously you want your manager to get every edge, to fight for every inch, to help your team win. But he seems to be going above and beyond doing that. And maybe it says to him, maybe he's doing that because he knows the Phillies have such a slim margin for error or need every inch they can get.
I agree with that. I thought he was doing it to try to just get Scherzer out of a rhythm because he was shutting them down so much. But, what kind of circus can we expect? Now, I didn't realize what you said happened is that they told them, see, I don't like that either. Hey, I'm going to tell you in the first and the third, we're going to come out and check, which means in the other innings, feel free. I think it should be more randomized, don't you?
Yeah, I guess they're trying to give some order to it and avoid the kind of, circus-like atmosphere or circus-like incidents that you had here last night. They did just tell the start. Now, they've been doing mostly the first and the third. I guess they told the pitchers before that they were going to check the starters twice. So theoretically, you don't know when that check is coming. But most of the time, from what I've seen last night and tonight, they've been doing it after the first inning and after the third inning.
And I guess for the relief pitchers, once they come into the game, they're getting checked once they come off the mound that first inning.
Correct. And most of your relief pitchers go 1 inning. It's rare that a reliever goes back out for 2. So you're basically checking the guy after he's done with his work. Now, I don't know what you do. If you catch the guy, they get a 10-game suspension.
Yeah.
If you got 3 outs, you can't go back and put the 3 outs back on the board or something like that. But, that is what they are doing. The relievers are being checked after their half inning of work.
Now, I know a lot of the hitters, like Chris Bryant last night from the Cubs, was like, shame on us for allowing them to tell us that they needed this substance to get a better grip on the ball. Like, they're looking at it like they're the victims and that they allowed this so much. Like, they enabled it here. This is going to be an interesting stare down, Mike, between the Players Association and baseball, don't you think? Don't they have a labor agreement coming up here?
Well, they do have a labor agreement coming up, but I think the problem with the Players Association is, like, your consistency is split, right? It's 50-50. It's hitters on one side and pitchers on the other. So if the pitchers are using, a substance to make themselves more effective and drive down hitters' batting average in numbers, i.e. costing hitters money, you almost have a split in the Players Association there. And then you have some hitters who want the pitchers to be able to use something, because as Max Scherzer pointed out last night, a few batters before Girardi checked the guy, he whizzed a 95-mile-an-hour fastball past Alec Boehm's head, And, if a guy's throwing 96, 97 miles an hour, if you're a hitter, you'd like to have that pitcher have an idea of where that ball is going.
Now, let me ask you, you cover a lot of high school sports. Are they, am I unaware, are they using some sort of substance to get grip on the baseball, or am I naive to this?
Yeah, I don't think they're using it on the high school level. And I would think that it's a type of thing where if you use it, you have to have a certain amount of talent. Like I could go out there and put, all the, the Spidey tack or whatever you want on the baseball. I'm not going to be able to strike out, Bryce Harper going out there. So
right.
I think it's a talent thing. I don't think they're using it on the high school to sort of increase their spin rate. Although high school pitchers working on sort of natural ways of focusing on their spin rate is a pretty big thing these days.
It absolutely is. Oh, yeah. But it's like, at what point, Scherzer, he's like, I had to put my hand through my hair because I needed moisture. And I'm thinking, did you do that when you were in high school? Did you need that in college? At what point it was like, hey, I need to do this? Or are you so used to now, I don't want cheating, I guess, that you almost have to?
Well, I think, too, in high school, right, I think the problem with the major leagues is you're almost using a new baseball, a brand new shiny baseball on every pitch or every batter, right? In high school, you're using a couple of baseballs. The baseballs get some dirt on it around the infield. So you get the ball gets scuffed up a little bit, makes it easy to grip. Whereas in the major leagues, as soon as the ball hits the dirt, it's out of play, So I think that's a big factor also.
By the way, just in, former Sixers assistant coach Ime Udoka is the new Celtics head coach. They will finalize that agreement, and he will be the new Celtics coach. So that just came down. So let's transfer over to the NBA and the basketball, Mike. Daryl Morey spoke yesterday, and I know I thought there was going to be more Ben Simmons inquiries, I got to be honest. But the ones that were there, did it give us any clear picture of the way they're thinking? Did you read the tea leaves one way or the other?
Well, I mean, my take on these end-of-season press conferences, I know why teams do it, but they really are satisfying for anyone involved. And teams, more often than not, just get themselves in trouble in them. I mean, the Phillies have had a couple of, disastrous end-of-season press conference. John Middleton had one 2 years ago. I think it was last fall, right? Andy McPhail,
Yes.
Who's going to move in a pandemic type of deal. So they're not satisfying anything because we want Daryl Morey to tell us what he's going to do. We want him to come out and say, Ben Simmons is gone. I'm trading him. There's no doubt about it. But we all know he's not going to say that. So everybody ends up leaving basically unsatisfied. Me sort of reading the tea leaves and looking at some
Yes,
signs,
that's what we want. We want you to read the tea leaves, though.
Right. I don't think there's any doubt. I think Ben Simmons, they have to trade him, and they will trade him in the offseason. I think there's plenty of evidence that say him and Embiid don't work, and I think you have to choose between the two, and you're going to choose Embiid, and you're going to trade Simmons.
Well, aren't they? They're really setting it up, though, to make you, I mean, at least Doc is, we have a plan in place, and he's skipping the Olympics. Well, they didn't say that. That was reported afterwards, that he's not going to play for Australia because he wants to work on his skills. Then Doc says, hey, we have a whole plan in place. We know exactly what we want to do here. This coming from a guy who is not really known for his player development.
Yeah, exactly. 10 days ago, Mike, Doc Rivers told us, well, if he makes 1 out of 2, it's fine. And Ben Simmons does a lot of things that don't matter, and we don't need him to score. Now, 10 days later, we have some top secret plan where we're going to take him from being a 30% foul shooter to a 70% foul shooter. It's not happening. I mean, Ben Simmons is who he is. He can be an effective NBA player, I believe, on a winning team, just not here in Philadelphia with Joel Embiid. If you take Ben Simmons and you surround him with 4 shooters, let's remember back to 2018, right? Joel Embiid has the eye injury, and the Sixers win like 20 in a row when it's Ben Simmons out there with 4 shooters. Put him in a similar situation with another NBA team, I think you're going to be effective, but you're never going to have that situation here in Philadelphia because you have Embiid.
It's an interesting I didn't realize this. I got to be honest. Simmons in the playoffs, his rookie year, shot 70% from the free throw line. And whatever happened since that point, I mean, he seemed like the arrow was pointing up. And apparently, they had a plan. They were working with him. And then Simmons' crew came in and said, not going to keep doing this. We're going to go do our own thing. So I guess the question really is, Mike, does Ben Simmons content, like he'll give you these answers like, well, how many assists did I have tonight? And how many points did Trae Young score? Like in his mind, is he the one guy who does something that nobody else does and he doesn't want to be like everybody else?
Well, I think in his mentality, those answers he gave in the post-game press conference after Game 7, how many assists did I have? What did Trae Young shoot? He's in his mind, he's saying, I did my job. I did that well. I played defense against Trae Young. I distributed the ball to my guys. But, that just doesn't work. It just isn't enough here in Philadelphia. We need him to be a more effective offensive player. We need him to be more aggressive. It might be effective. For example, and who knows what's going to happen, take Ben Simmons and put him in the Draymond Green role on the Golden State Warriors, and Golden State's probably a very good team, if not better than they are now. The problem is it's just team makeup, and you have Embiid and Simmons, and it's just not a good fit here in Philadelphia, and I believe you have to choose between the two, and you're going to choose Embiid and not Simmons at this point.
It'll be. By the way, did you realize he shot 70% from the line as a rookie in the postseason?
Yeah, I remember those games against, that was the series against the Miami Heat. And you know what, Mike? He's never had a problem in the first round of the playoffs. He's always played well. The Miami Heat, he played well. The Brooklyn Nets, he played well. He even played well against the Washington Wizards, right? It's in round 2 where he kind of hits that stumbling block. That year, that rookie year, did he have the game up in Boston where he scored like 2 points,
Yep.
And then you had Toronto the next year where he took 6 shots in the fourth quarter in 51 minutes. And now you had this year against the Hawks where he takes 3 shots in 50-something minutes of the fourth quarter. So he's always played well in round 1, which is more like the regular season. It's when you get to round 2 and you face a better defenses where he sort of hits where it becomes a problem. And, the other flip side is if you're the Sixers, you're looking at the success that Embiid and Seth Curry had in a 2-man game throughout the Hawks series. And I'm saying, what if we put Embiid with a guard who is truly a playmaker and a really outstanding shooter, scorer, creator? What could that look like? So that's why I think you absolutely have to trade Ben Simmons.
Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. Ben Simmons in the second round and Vince Velasquez in the 5th. It's now 5-5. I figured if we talked long enough, this game would be tied.
Exactly. I knew, even though it went 9 up and 9 down, I said, there's no way we're not here for nearly 4 hours. But there are worse places to spend 4 hours than the ballpark, right?
Yeah. So. And by the way, it was Archie Bradley who gave up the bomb, but they had to get Velasquez out because he had 2 on. Real quick, Mike, you'll be back on Friday, but it's a nice little Phillies-Mets series coming up.
Well, exactly, and this is why today's game is so big. The Phillies have got to build some momentum going into 4 games in New York. This really is a key stretch for them, and, it's not going well. Whether they've been lost 2 or 3 in a row, and a win today, they've got to build some momentum going into New York for 4 games.
All right, man. Mike McGarry, Press of Atlantic City. Make sure you give him a follow, AC Press McGarry, and he, like all guests here on the Sports Bash, a lot going on throughout the summer with the Phils, the Sixers offseason, and we're 34 days away from Eagles camp. All right, pal. I'll talk to you Friday.
All right. We'll see you later, Mike. Thanks.
All right. There he is. That's Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. Call Jenkins for heating and air conditioning, installation, service, and maintenance, plumbing, drain cleaning service, 609-641-6440, JenkinsPlumbingHeating.com. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. Yep, all tied up. Phillies and Nationals, 5-5 in the 5th. It was 5-0 Phillies, but Vince Velasquez is on the mound, so that wasn't going to stay. That wasn't going to happen. That's like clockwork. Vince Velasquez giving up a lead, pitching in the 5th. Much like he said, McGarry, Ben Simmons in the second round, for whatever reason, not the same player he is in that first round. Coming up, this will be interesting. By the way, I got a random question on the text board that I do want to get into because I think it's a very difficult question to answer, sadly. And what would a Ben Simmons deal look like? I did some research last night and found a bunch of scenarios. We'll throw them around and see which ones actually make you feel warm and fuzzy inside. If you're going to trade Ben, these might be the type of deals you're looking at. Inside the Sixers, Paul Hudrick, what to watch in the Bucks-Hawks series. Jeff Mosher's here tonight. Do you remember things that happened on June 23rd in sports history? Jeff Kerr tonight. We got a lot going on. I'm Mike Gill, and this is the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
South Jersey's play-by-play home for the Eagles,
Touchdown!
Sixers,
It's good!
and Flyers.
Oh, big save by Carter Hart.
97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City, a Town Square media station. This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. Now, live inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, here's Mike Gill.
All right, hour 2 of the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. I'm Mike Gill. What's going on, everybody? Jason Fitz, ESPN Spain and Fitz, set to join us here on a Sports Bash Wednesday. And it was like, as I was at the game Sunday night in Philadelphia, and even I sat there and just said, I can't believe what I'm watching. And yet, here we are on Wednesday, Jason Fitz, and I'm not sure that I have absorbed it all in. I'm not sure that I actually believe what I saw on Wednesday night, that Trae Young walked into Philadelphia for a third time, 3 times on your home floor, and beat the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, most of the narrative seems to be that this is all Ben Simmons' fault. But is it singularly Ben Simmons that cost them the series against the Hawks?
No, I mean, I think, you've got to look at the coaching, right? I mean, at the end of the day, the decisions throughout the course of the entire series were questionable at times. And I think, you look at the rotation of the way it was used. And I don't want to take anything away from Trae Young and what we saw. But the reality of it is there was a true expectation that this team, talent-wise, could compete with anybody. And they left everything out there. I mean, that was a hobble Joel Embiid. We all know it. And Tobias Harris had some nice games along the way. But I struggle to look at the hardest type of loss. Let me say it this way. The hardest type of loss for fans to swallow are the ones where afterwards you remember 1 or 2 moments and say, how the heck did that happen? This feels like, and that's why it's going to continually sit in everybody's craw. But, the game 7 is going to cause massive change, should cause massive change for the organization. And no, it's not all Ben Simmons' fault, but if you're going to pick one person, that's an easy person to pick to point a lot of blame towards.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch that and see, he obviously, here's a guy, look, polarizing as he is, some people can't stand him. He doesn't shoot, can't stand him, can't play in this league. If you can't shoot, can't score, I don't want you. Then there's another side that kind of appreciates what he does bring to the table and, all that. Nobody could understand how he went from a poor free throw shooter to historically the worst. If he was just poor, they probably would have swept the series. So that is why I think this is so hard to swallow, is the fact that even the biggest hater has to at least acknowledge that what you don't like him for, he wasn't the same guy in this series. He was something. It was almost like watching Markelle Fultz break down.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. When you've got a mental breakdown, what fixes it? And that's, I think, what's going to sit in everybody's mind. What really bothers me is seeing the next day when the organization comes out, when Doc comes out and says, hey, we've got a plan for Ben Simmons. And also essentially says, hey, you can work hard. It doesn't mean you're working smart. Well, now there needs to be real follow-up questions to that. Like, has the organization been asking him to do this and he's simply chosen not to? And if so, I think you need to be really loud about that. We've seen the articles about who he surrounded himself with, but there also has to be some point that changes Ben. And realistically, how much does the organization allowing superstars to do what they want to do? How much do they have to bear some of the burden here? And to me, that's the part of it that I feel like what the 76ers as a team has done since then is basically thrown Ben Simmons under the bus without ever saying, hey, this is what we allowed. This was our plan from the get-go. This is what wasn't taken from our plan. We've had no transparency from them. And in the process of doing it, I don't know why we're supposed to just believe that the organization's been on the right side every step of the way and Ben Simmons has been on the wrong. That just feels a really convenient narrative to get after that loss.
Isn't that, Jay, the culture of the NBA, though? Like, apparently, I had read an article yesterday, and we had the guy on, Yaron Weitzman from Fox, who said, essentially the Sixers had this plan for Ben, and he shot 70% from the free throw line in the playoffs his rookie season. They had been working with them. There was one coach, and that was his job, and the arrow was going up. They had this 4-page layout for him, and then his agent came in and said, nah, he's going to go work with his brother this offseason. And at that point, is that the culture of the NBA? Is that the franchise's problem? Should they not allow these guys to go work with that? Can you do that? How does that work?
Now, you trade him. I mean, at that point, if you understand that, hey, I don't trust, like, we'll use this with a little tongue in cheek. I don't trust his process as an organization. I only know he's going to get worse. And the worse he gets, the worse the trade market is for him. And I think that's one of the things that has really blown my mind. I've seen everybody saying, well, trade him, trade him, trade him. Every GM in the NBA watch that series. What are you getting for him now? Like a super collectible Funko Pop and a bag of popsicles? Like, you're not getting anything in return for Ben Simmons at this point. And that's on the organization. If they had a plan for him and he wouldn't take it, then they need to go in and say, fine, I respect that. I want you to be the best version of you, but we're going to trade you right now before this gets any worse. By not doing that, then now they put themselves in this situation where all they're realistically going to get back from Ben Simmons, in my mind, and I believe this strongly, is a B or C level player at best and some draft equity. You are not going to be better than Brooklyn with whatever you get in return for Ben Simmons. That's the organization's fault. If he had a plan and he chose not to take it, that was their signal right then that we need to get out of the Ben Simmons relationship while the equity is the highest. If you know that there's a really good shot that your house could have a foundation issue, you sell that thing before everybody else finds out, because once the rest of the world finds out, you got to fix it before you can sell it, and now you're upside down, and that's where the 76ers have put themselves with Ben Simmons.
Yeah, it's a very interesting spot they're in, because obviously they fired the coach last year. They brought a new coach in, and guess what, Jay? People are blaming this coach now too. So how much of a role do coaches have in the success and failure of these teams? I mean, everybody thought Brett Brown, he was the worst, and it's his fault. Well, Bruce Bowen, he's on today with Greeny saying, I don't think Brett Brown was all that bad, and I don't really think it was much of his fault. Look at what's going on with Doc Rivers. I hear the same thing. These people call, they text, they tweet at me. Brett Brown the worst. Now it's Doc Rivers, he's horrible. He cost him the series. Does every coach cost the team? I don't know that one coach that anybody likes in this league.
Yeah, here's the thing. I think coaching, when it's great, can be a great advantage. I would argue, for example, Monty Williams last night, drawing up that play while they were having the review, using the extra timeout.
Who did he give credit to for that play?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean,
right.
So you look at that and you say,
he said, I got that play from. He said, I got that play from Brett Brown.
And so you can look at it and say, fine, when coaching is on, it can be that little extra. It's like if you have the best cake in the world and the icing is absolutely perfect, that is what coaching can be. And I think coaching can help if you've got a team that needs a new voice and needs to hear somebody different. But in a situation like this, I mean, if we're going to talk, like I said earlier, about the rotations and the players and the way they're being used, you're right. Absolutely. Every coach has such a short lifespan because realistically, unless they can inject energy in, I don't know how much we can take away from coaching. Look at our final four coaches. Budenholzer was a bum until suddenly Milwaukee won, and now it's like, no, everything's going to be good. Monty Williams is the glorious, absolute wonder coach, right? But at the same time, you talk to people around the organization, they'll tell you CP3 gets a lot of the credit for coming in and giving the guys the internal message to toughen up. Ty Lue is the worst when they lose the first two games in every season, but then he's the best at adjustments when they win them without anyone acknowledging that health is really the factor we talk about. Like, so you're 1,000% right. The only thing that I think a coaching change can do is it can galvanize the locker room together if it's a new voice that finds the way to get into the right speaking, the right tone with the players. Like, I think the Celtics needed a new voice just to hear somebody fresh that maybe can bring them together. But realistically, I look at coaching as a 2-year thing, like maybe a 3-year thing. I mean, the Pelicans had some success, but not enough for them to keep their coach, right? Like, everybody just looks at it and says, well, if I've got a star, I'll just make a rotating door until I get the right coach in the building.
Yeah, the Lue thing's interesting. You know, my buddy who he hates Lue. He thinks he's the worst coach ever. And I'm like, the guy's won a championship. What am I supposed to do with that? Well, he has LeBron. I said, but that's my point on the coach. The coach is only as good as the players that he has around him. And now I'm hearing all of the NBA people like, oh, as you just said, Lou's making great adjustments and he's doing all the stuff. I said, so is now Lou good? And my buddy, he doesn't want to answer that question. He said, well, he's got this guy. I said, well, Kawhi's hurt and he's still winning. Well, now they're down 0-2, but still, I mean, that whole dynamic of blaming the coach from age, I just can't get a grasp of it. I get it. They have a role. I always say, Jay, they have a role. Their impact is something, but every big loss in every game, it's the coach costs them, and I can't get behind that.
And at some point, we have to look at coaches the same way we look at every job. If you are a spreadsheet maker and you have the worst computers in the world, somebody else is going to make better spreadsheets that has a better computer. If you're a sports talk host and your microphones stink, it doesn't matter what you do. At some level, if somebody has better radio signal, they're going to have a better audience. And, if you're a musician and you're playing really, really bad violins, somebody might think you're not as good as the other. And I always use this one really because I love food. But if you are a chef and you walk in, sometimes chefs can make chicken salad out of you-know-what. But realistically, if you are in a top chef competition and you have best chefs in the world and one person has the best ingredients ever and the other person is cooking with somebody's leftovers that were burnt in the first place, guess who's going to win that cooking competition more often than not? The ingredients matter no matter how good or bad you are at your job.
All I know is this, the Sixers have now gone through 5 GMs. It's now the second coach's fault. Maybe this group of players is just not good enough to get it done. Maybe we have to start to realize that might be a little bit of the problem. Jason Fitz, I want to get your opinion on what the hell is college football doing?
Yeah, here's the thing. If we're looking at expansion and we're looking at name, image, likeness, and all of these things happening at once, one thing I would say to the college football fan is just get used to, for the next 18 months, being really uncomfortable and stop yelling about what you want. Because frankly, the minute the Supreme Court comes in and tells the NCAA what they're doing, this is no longer about what anybody wants. This is about what's inevitable. And so you've got to start looking at your favorite team and saying, okay, how is my favorite team going to compete in this market? And if we end up with college football expansion, while we end up with name, image, likeness, I think for the first 2, 3, 4 years, it might be gruesome to watch some of these teams that make the playoffs and get murdered in the first round. But realistically, long term, if it helps spread recruiting out, that's the real problem for college. The real problem is that if you are it's not Ohio State, Alabama, not only are getting less at a point. Best recruits are going to go where they can get the most, and that may in 5 years some. At the end of the day, just remind yourself, end up with this brutal Alabama beating Coastal Carolina 50-0. Is that really worse than sitting through a Music City Bowl nobody cared about in the first place? My answer is no. Give me a blowout playoff game over a meaningless bowl game between two teams nobody wants to watch.
I did enjoy the one Music City Bowl that I attended because I got to go to Nashville, right? I mean, what better place to go for a football?
It's a party.
He's Jason Fitz. You can hear him on Spain and Fitz right here on 97.3 ESPN, at Jason Fitz on Twitter. And, of course, he on the Sports Bash Live. Great stuff. Yes, Nashville is a great party. And I didn't have my college shirt on today. Damn it, I forgot to do that for you. All right, man.
Get you an old school UNLV shirt. I need some Vegas. Now, we've seen the Nashville. Give me the old running Rebels from the Larry Johnson, Stacey Augmon era. I'm all in for that. That's the next city we got to figure out how to party.
All right. I think I've never been to Vegas. I'm in Atlantic City, so I've not done the Vegas thing, but it's something that's on my list. I'll get out there. Don't tell me you got to do Vegas. I know. All right, pal. I'll talk to you.
No. You got to do Vegas with me. We'll do Vegas together. That's the way to do it.
All right, now you got me. Now I'm in. Take care. There's Jason Fitz here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, brought to you by your Delaware Valley Acura dealers. I think we probably would get into some trouble out there. For great deals on Acura's award-winning lineup, shop online, DelValAcuraDealers.com. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. And don't forget, you can watch the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. If you want to check us out, Paul Hudrick will be up next. You'll be able to see Paul. Did you talk to Paul about his poison ivy yesterday? Last night, Josh? Did you talk to Paul about his poison ivy last night? Saw his arm all wrapped up on Twitter. At Paul Hudrick. He's on the other side. Stick around here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Sports Pass live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And don't forget, you can watch the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter and be a part of the live video chat. And, of course, text the show, 609-403-0973. Paul Hudrick, the Sixers season we know came to an end. We discussed a lot of the fallout from game number 7. Now, Daryl Morey spoke yesterday. Now, I know that you didn't get the live version of Daryl Morey. How is everything doing with the poison ivy there? I saw the arm all up.
Yeah, it's very uncomfortable. No, yeah, I'm good. I just had to they put me on a steroid. I'm all good to go now. It's just super uncomfortable, but I'm just fine.
This isn't like Sunday night frustration of seeing that game and just running through the forest, is it?
No, but with that said, I think I would rather be experiencing this than talk about Ben Simmons for the next 4 months. But here we are.
Well, and that's just it. Is it entirely about Ben Simmons? What did you take mostly from Daryl Morey? Because I don't know that he committed to one thing or another, but what was maybe a key message from Daryl Morey yesterday from your takes? I have a few myself, but I'm interested to see what kind of stood out in that presser from you.
Yeah, a few things. Clearly, he is in Doc Rivers' corner. Doc Rivers is under no type of fear or pressure to do anything next season because it felt like a Doc Rivers love fest with Daryl Morey yesterday, which I don't, do I think Doc Rivers as a whole did a really good job with his team? Yes, I think he got the most out of a lot of guys. But that said, I didn't agree with a lot of the things he did down the stretch. Now it's not going to do anyone any good for Daryl Morey to go out and rip Doc Rivers at the same time. But there was that. I thought I liked some of the things Daryl said as far as the one thing that he said multiple times was we don't want to overreact and we don't want to underreact to what we just saw. And I think that's where a lot of people are. A lot of people. And I get it. People react emotionally. You root for this team all season long. They get the number 1 seed. Everyone thought they were going. I'm still in disbelief that it's the Eastern Conference Finals tonight and the Sixers aren't in it. So for, with all that, but you can't overreact and you still have to focus on the other things. And you can't just say, oh, trade Ben Simmons for a bag of basketballs. Like you can't think like that. And so that stood out. And then also just how complimentary he was of the young players. Like clearly he thinks guys like Matisse Thybulle, Tyrese Maxey, Shake Milton, like he thinks that those guys are going to push for big minutes next year. And he might not be wrong. I think those guys could be a big part of their future. And then that's not even talking about, a guy like Isaiah Joe, who I think could be a factor, or even Paul Reed.
I do agree with that I said it was definitively him praising Doc Rivers and that it's almost to the point that did you feel that Rivers has a lot more power than most? I mean, that they almost respect him and what he thinks more than almost anybody else.
Well, it's the relationship that they have. Daryl and Doc go way, way back, all the way back to the Boston days. So I think it's just that mutual respect. And I think Daryl has always wanted to work with Doc. So, but it's a human nature thing to a certain extent. Like I think we all just, in all of us in our daily lives, whether it's work or just in our personal relationship, we all have kind of people we gravitate to and people we gravitate towards, and we really respect and appreciate what they say. And clearly Daryl and Doc are on that level where, they both had a mutual appreciation for each other and have both always really wanted to work with each other. So I think, the Daryl Morey gushing thing, I think it's just, that's a big part of it. It's just that he's always admired Doc. And that's a part of the big reason why Daryl chose to come here. Because remember, Doc was here first and then Daryl showed up. So I mean, it's clear that mutual respect is very big in the Sixers organization, and that, they're kind of tied to the hip at this point, I would say.
No, there's no question that I took the same thing you did. It was that Morey was and it was almost like, he met with Ben Simmons, and I didn't even need to go in there because those two had a meeting. Like, it was like, you're the president of basketball operations. You didn't sit in to say, hey, Ben, I'm going to need more from you, and I need to know. Like, that to me was the odd part of it, is that it was almost as if, now I don't know that maybe they did, he just want to talk about it, as if Morey hasn't actually sat down and talked to Ben about, hey, what happened in this series?
Yeah, I mean, every executive's different, though. I think there are a lot of executives that I mean, you saw the movie Moneyball and the whole thing with like Billy Beane, like didn't want to interact with players because it was easier to trade them or cut them. I don't know if that's where Daryl Morey's head is, but I think Daryl, and he kind of mentioned this in the presser yesterday, he trusts the evaluation of Doc and Doc's coaches. He trusts their evaluations of what they think. And then it's Daryl's job to go fix, to make solutions. So with whatever, so I think I understand what you're saying, but I think what's more important is Doc and Ben have that relationship, and then Doc and Daryl have that relationship so that, you know what I mean? Daryl can read, because you got to look at it like this. Like, it's kind of like too with the whole Bill Parcells thing with the, shopping for the groceries, like that kind of a thing where I think Daryl wants to make sure that Doc has the guys he wants and has the guys that make sense for him that he can get the most out of. So if Doc has a meeting with Ben Simmons and, that goes really well, and Doc Rivers turns to Daryl Morey and says, you know what, I think we could get this guy on the right track, whether he's right or wrong. We think we can get this guy on the right track, and I want to give him another shot. And then, as things come up, I'm sure if someone calls tomorrow asking about Ben Simmons, one, Daryl Morey's not going to hang up the phone, but two, I'm sure Doc Rivers is going to have some input on whether or not a decision ultimately gets made.
Yeah, I think, one thing that Morey did say is kind of bouncing off of what you said was 25, 26 other teams would like to be where we are. I don't understand this narrative that we're in a bad spot. I don't want to say they're in a bad spot, but I hate to use the process, but that was to put them at the next level. Are they at a similar level that they were prior to 2013? Are they above that?
No, they're definitely above that, I would say. I mean, I think this is more similar to, I don't want to compare because I just feel like I get what I get what some people are saying, where it's not, the situation with Ben Simmons right now isn't great. I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat that. It's just not great. He makes a lot of money and you're not sure what he is. You know a lot of what he isn't. And so that's not great. And you don't know where his head's at. You don't know where he's going to be mentally going into next year. You don't know what he's going to do this offseason. So there's just a lot of question marks with that. But I get where Daryl's coming from, where you have a guy who, finished second in MVP voting, but what many people would say was the best player in the NBA this season. You have Tobias Harris, who a lot of people think should have been an all-star. You have pretty good young players. I mean, you have also Seth Curry locked up for the next 2 seasons, who was tremendous in the playoffs. You have Matisse Thybulle, you have Tyrese Maxey, you have Shake Milton. You have these young guys who are going to be part of that foundation. So I think what Daryl's saying is a lot of look at a team like the Nets. They're so all in on those 3 guys and all that money, and how are they going to make that work going forward, and how are they going to supplement their roster? Not to say the Nets are in a bad spot either, but I just think, when you look at the Sixers and their age of their players too, I think all of it's they're in a better spot. Let's say, put it like this. They're in a much better spot going into this offseason than they were going into last offseason, in my opinion.
Yeah, I have said, and I agree, by the way, because there's a lot of people who think, and I hate to get into this, if the process failed. Look, that's way past. To me, it has been a home run because of what we do, right? In terms of they lose on Tuesday night in February, and you're pissed. They lose on Tuesday night in February in the past. You barely knew they played. Nobody cared about this team. Now you almost care too much. That was the goal. They could tell you it's about winning championships. No. It's a business. They want you to consume their product again because the fans gave up on that product because they knew the ending. Is it a success championship-wise? No. Are they in a better place as a franchise? Absolutely. Now, off your point, you could say they overachieved. They were the 6th seed that got swept last year with horrible contracts and a roster that you look like, where are we going? What are we doing? Last offseason was about clearing the books and resetting that. I think Morey now is not content, is intending he fixed the books, and now I got to fix this roster. The question is, where does he start fixing it? How does he start to kind of mold the team that he wants after he got those contracts that were crippling out of here?
And that's where he was kind of vague yesterday, is he didn't really say what he's looking for. He just said better players, whatever that means. Take that for what you want. I think one guy he would have liked to have here and who saw has made a difference with the Milwaukee Bucks. And a lot of people, Mike, you and I, when we talked about wanting to get him here, a lot of people like, oh, PJ Tucker. Who cares about PJ Tucker? Looks pretty darn good in a Milwaukee Bucks uniform, and he's helped them get to the Eastern Conference Finals. I think they could use more guys like that. For lack of a better term, dogs, like guys who are just straight dogs who want to compete, who want to fight, who want to push. Danny Green is a guy who is like that. And like to me, that's not, I'm not saying this to like down, like to say be disrespectful to any players that are on the Sixers, but how many guys are there, or even like a guy like, it didn't work out last night for them, but Patrick Beverley, man, he gave that team every ounce of energy he had. And for the most part, held Devin Booker in check for most of the night. Like the Sixers, I just don't feel like don't have enough guys like that. Enough guys that just want to tear your heart out. That just, you know what I mean? Like enough guys that just want to beat you. And, I think that's a big part of it. I think they could use some more veteran players like that. And listen, I think the Ben Simmons thing is going to be fascinating. I don't, they're not going to trade him for pennies on the dollar. They're going to get, if they're going to get something for him, they're going to get something of value. Like for people who just think like, oh, there's no way Ben Simmons will be in a Sixers uniform starting next season. You need to get that out of your head, because there's a good chance he is still here. If there is not a good deal out there for him, Daryl Morey's not just going to give him away. And if you're Daryl Morey, do you sell him for pennies on a dollar now while his value is at its absolute lowest? Or do you bring him into the season hoping that he improves either to help you or to help his trade value? So maybe you move him during the season. So, I mean, I just think people need to take a step back with that. But I think that's everything in the offseason is going to depend on how they feel about Ben Simmons and what other teams feel about Ben Simmons and what they could possibly get. Because, there's a reason why he was so non-committal, Daryl Morey, when talking about Ben, because it's if Steph Curry wants out of Golden State, if Dame Lillard wants out of Portland, and part of that package is for Ben Simmons, you don't think twice. But also, I'm not going to trade him for D'Angelo Russell. Like you have to really have that kind of context about it. So I think that's that's going to be the big thing. It's going to be how they feel about Ben and what the other teams, what the market would look like if they could move him.
That's a good point. And Paul Hudrick's with us here, looking at what's next for the Sixers as a disappointing season. I guess when you look at Doc Rivers, we know he's not going anywhere, but how much of where they are right now and kind of this feeling is that there's been a lot of talk about him as a coach in game and talent. What's the word that they hired Brett Brown for? He was supposed to be a, to improve the talent, like player development. There you go, player development. That is not Doc's strong suit, right? Player development. So is he the right guy as the coach of this team to work and develop Maxey, Thibault, Ben Simmons' shot? How do you feel about that moving forward?
I think a couple things. One, Ben Simmons definitely trusts Doc Rivers, and I don't think that's something you can discredit. I think that's something that definitely. I think he does. Yeah.
Okay. After he said, okay. Just
I still think I do. I think he still trusts Doc Rivers. He's mentioned it many times. He trusts Sam Cassell as well, who has worked with Ben, has worked with Tobias, has worked with Tyrese Maxey to help them. And I think when you're talking about development, this is why you hire a staff too. I mean, it's not just all on Doc Rivers. It's on those other coaches. And I think Sam Cassell is a huge part of that. I think that's, a big reason. I think, look, Ben is not a great example because he didn't play so hot, in the postseason. But look at Tobias. Tobias had a big year, and it wasn't just because of Doc Rivers. It was because he worked with Sam Cassell a lot too. Tyrese Maxey, how much he improved during his rookie season as a 20-year-old to make a difference in the playoffs. I mean, this goes on Sam Cassell. So, I mean, I think part of being a good boss and running a good organization is hiring good people underneath you. And I think that's a big part of it. So Doc Rivers, maybe not the strongest with that necessarily, but I think that he's got some really good allies that can help him with that. And I think, and other coach, like Chris Babcock's been there for a while. I know Joel Embiid gives him a lot of credit. Tyler Lashbrook's a guy that I know Shake Milton has given a lot of credit to. So, I mean, they have good player development coaches that have helped develop some of these guys. With Ben Simmons, my biggest, it's clearly mental, and that's why I'd almost rather have a coach that he trusts that can get through to him on that side of it, because I don't think it's physical. I think someone has to mentally and emotionally get through to him to make him see what he is and what he can become and what the best version of him is to help the Sixers.
Yeah, that's an interesting dynamic. He said, we have a plan for Ben. Did you read Weitzman's article in Fox?
I did. Very well written by your own.
All right, so we had him on yesterday. Fascinating conversation about the whole, hey, I didn't realize Simmons shot 70% in his rookie year in the playoffs. Like, that to me was like, wait, what? And that they had this plan, and that Brett Brown had this plan, and then, no, we're going to go and do our own thing here. Is that going to be tolerated again? Or are they like, Ben Simmons, you need to work here, otherwise we might have to do something about this? Like, can you allow him to do his own thing again?
Yeah, I mean, listen, he worked this past offseason with Chris Johnson, who is, he also worked with Tyrese Maxey, he's worked with Rondo, he's worked with a lot of big name NBA players. So it's not like he went to some, I get when he was with John Townsend, who is a renowned shooting coach, and then he goes to work with his brother, who's a D3 college coach. With all due respect to his brother, that's not on the same level. You need a guy like that. You need these elite guys. So Chris Johnson, I don't think that was the problem. Was who he was working out with, it was tough this past offseason too, because he was hurt. I mean, he's coming off that knee surgery, so he didn't have a ton of time to work and improve. And that's not to make an excuse, because he's had other off seasons to do that. But I'm just saying, is part of it troubling? Is the impact of his agency and the people around him influencing certain things? Yeah, that's a little troubling to me. And that might have been part of the conversation. I think when Doc Rivers said it the other day that he talked about the difference and what he thinks the difference will be this year as compared to other off seasons, and Doc was pretty coy about it, but he seemed to indicate what you're saying is that we didn't like what was going on before. We didn't like how he was going, what his offseason looked like before. We're going to make sure it doesn't look like that anymore, and it's better. So that's kind of a reason for optimism for me. But yeah, when I read your own article, really it was troubling, but not surprising to see kind of the meddling that was going on there with Clutch and with Ben's family, and just the weirdness there. And it's just like, yeah, I mean, I think he might be at a point where he's got too many people in his head, if that makes sense, and he's not doing enough stuff for himself. And I think I'm thinking and I'm hoping for his sake, that's what Doc Rivers is talking about, where they're going to make decisions that they think are best for him, and they want him to be good with it too. Yeah,
and it wasn't like, the whole, Stephen A saying, well, he's enabled and like that kind of stuff. Okay, somebody texted me and said that. Whatever. I mean, maybe he is. Maybe he's being enabled. Maybe that. But this whole story, and it kind of ties in where he's talking to, if he gets a one-on-one with Ben Simmons and he's like, what about your shooting? And Ben's like, what about it? Mm-hmm. Really? What about it? What kind of question is that? Like, what kind of response that, like, that's what baffles me more than anything, is that it's almost as if it's taboo to ask him or anybody else, hey, do you notice that this whole league shoots but you? And it's almost like he's like, well, I'm the only one that does this and nobody else does that. So why don't you ask the other 400 players in the league, why don't they defend and pass the ball the way that I do? And then get back to me. You know what I mean? Like, no, it's a weird, it's again, it goes back to the mental aspect of it. And it's weird because it's not that he doesn't know that could help him. Like he's very aware of that. And he's said that. He said it's another area of his game that he's going to grow. And we saw it grow, and then we saw it just die. So that's what's weird to me, is that it's the stages are what's weird to me, Mike, is yes, that summer league video that circulates every once in a while where it's him taking elbow jumpers and fadeaways and he's knocking them down with ease. And to your, the shooting 70% from the line as a rookie in the playoffs. And it's just like the deterioration of it. And like, I don't know what happened. Like and like, honestly, the only person that really probably knows what happened is Ben Simmons. And it's because it's a combination of the skill not being his strongest, which is fine. But then
And then he clearly works on it. So, like, I don't get the whole work thing. I think he does work on it, but it's that mental hurdle of just doing it in a game and just making that a part of, yes, you're a really good passer. Yes, you're a freight train in a transition. Yes, you're a great defender. But if you add this simple aspect to your game, and I thought another thing that was in your own article that was interesting is Brett Brown had it listed this way, and I agree with this order: free throw shooting, finishing at the rim, then 3-pointers. That's exactly what I 100% agree with that. He needs to be a better free throw shooter so that when he gets to the rim, he gets fouled, he gets to the line, he makes them. He needs to be better finishing at the rim because if you're not going to shoot from the outside, you better have touch and you better be creative around the rim. And then 3 points last. Like that was the last of those three things. So, yeah, I mean, it's just I don't no one has an explanation. None of us know what happened from LSU to summer league to his, the rookie year he spent out, and then to the last 3 years where it's just deteriorated over the last 3 or 4 years. I can't make heads or tails of it. I really can't.
Yeah, that is another one. I'm no Ben Simmons hater. I appreciate his game. I do question whether he will put the work ethic in, and really come back a different player and really work hard on it, because it's like, okay, I've seen you shoot. I just don't know that you're going to implement it. Like, he could work his ass off this summer. Okay, great. Is he going to implement that? I don't know, man. Like, is him not shooting in a game saying, I didn't work on it, I'm not ready to implement it? When does that switch go? I don't know that I see that happening.
No, listen, Mike, I think anyone in this area is kidding themselves if they're thinking that Ben Simmons is going to, like, if they're automatically thinking that, okay, this is the wake-up call. And listen, it still could be. It could be the big wake-up call he needs. This might have been enough. If this wasn't enough, I don't know whatever will be, but this might have been enough for him to mentally say to himself, okay, I have to fix this. I have to fix this, and I have to fix it now. I can't mess around. I have to listen to people, and I think that's the key word, listen. I think he's just got to listen to the right people and surround himself with the right people to improve in that way and to get over that mental block and that mental hurdle. Because I do think he works. I think he works. I think he tries. I think he cares. I think all of those things are true. But for some reason, when he gets, and I almost think that's like the example your own cited talking to him about the shot. I think it's like a defense mechanism because he knows he doesn't do it. I don't think that's a matter of, like, I don't even know if I think he's almost like lying to himself to try, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's even, I don't even know if he fully believes that he doesn't need to shoot or that he doesn't need to be better in those regards. I think it's almost like a reaction, like, whoa, well, I do this, that, and the other thing. Like, he just gets really defensive. Yeah. And I think that's all part of the mental aspect of it. Because I think that's 100% what it is. There's no, again, I don't love his form. I've said that all along. I still don't love his form. It's gotten a little bit better, but it's between the years. There's no doubt about it.
Do you think he's right-handed?
Might be. He might be.
Listen, not that it's new. I've heard people suggest it.
Right.
It's really starting to be like he's shooting with the wrong hand, and it's like, come on, really? Like, the guy, like, how the hell do you play in an NBA game and shoot with the wrong hand? Like, how does he not know that?
I guess if you've been doing it your whole life and at times it's worked for you, so you stuck with it. But I mean, I've seen videos of him shooting right-handed. It looks pretty natural. And when you look at him and his finishing numbers, he always goes to that right-handed hook shot. He loves to finish with his right hand at the rim. So, I mean, he does a lot of things. Like, so people always joke he signed the max contract with his right hand. I mean, it's so is that a thing that they could explore? Maybe. But here's how I look at it, though, Mike. If it's going to be
came out next year, Poppin' Jay's right-handed.
Well, that's what it is. Like, are we talking about, like, if it's a move that they start doing early and it looks good and he starts feeling good and he starts feeling comfortable, maybe that can help the mental aspect of it because he'll feel better about it and that'll be the change. But if it's a built from the ground up thing, I don't know if that's going to work. So it's tough. I mean, I've only seen like one or two. I saw like one report where that could be something that they look into. But if that's the case, though, too, Mike, I think that's actually encouraging because if that's something that he's actually considering, that shows that it's on his mind and that he cares and that he wants to fix it. So that is in a way a positive sign to me.
Wow, that would be wild.
It's not unprecedented. Guys have done it before.
Yeah,
I mean-
I guess to let I think I brought this up to you the other day. It's in Yaron's article. He has the video of him shooting the elbow jumpers in the summer league, like fluidly, multiple times. If anybody said, "What happened to this? What happened?" Because anybody sat down and just been, "What happened to this guy?" Like that is the most bizarre thing. All right, the last one to kind of get out of here would be outside of Ben. Is there a major move that you could see on the table?
Yeah, I mean, because I think they could. Daryl Morey is one of the most creative executives we've ever seen in the NBA. The things he's done, the way he's able to, to maneuver, what he did this past offseason, being able to not only get off of Al Horford's contract, but get a player in Danny Green who actually helped them win games, to move off from Josh Richardson, and again, get a guy in Seth Curry who helped them win a lot of games this year. On that small of a scale, he was able to do that in a short period of time. He didn't have a full offseason. So with a full offseason, I would not be surprised at all to see him explore some other avenues, whether it's a sign and trade using Danny Green and George Hill's contracts to maybe bring in a Kyle Lowry or something like that. I could 100% see Daryl swinging for the fences and making a big move like that to get a more perimeter player, a guard that can help alleviate some of the pressure off Ben Simmons. Maybe push him at the same time. So I'll put it like this: with Daryl Morey, nothing's off the table. I could 100% see him making a big move and moving on from Ben Simmons and getting talent back here, or I could see him keeping his big trio intact and finding other ways to improve around them. I could see it going either way, because it looked like the only thing I would say is probably off the table is I don't see him trading Joel Embiid. I don't think any other player on the entire roster is
hard to win with a big man. Was that a hint?
No, but that's not. I mean, that was more, I think, him saying something to the league, suggesting that, basically that Joel Embiid should get more calls and Trae Young should get less. That's how I interpreted it. I didn't interpret it as no. I think people that saw that, I think, looked into it a little too much. With Joel Embiid, it was as simple as the Hawks sent 3 guys on him, and the Sixers had no other options to beat them, so they just kept doing it.
Who wins? Hawks, Bucks series.
I like the Bucks. I think they're a pretty complete team. I really do, and I think defensively you can show Trae. Drew Holiday's one of the best defensive guards in the entire league. You also have Middleton that you could put him on. Just maybe show him a little bit more size and stuff and length, and maybe change some coverages up. You could even maybe mess around and go with Tucker for a little bit, just to maybe rough him up a little bit, something like that. So I just think the options that Milwaukee has, the deepness of their team, even without DiVincenzo, they are still a really deep basketball team. So I just think in a 7-game series, I think they beat the Hawks.
He's Paul Hudrick at Paul Hudrick, and we'll take a look at this series coming up a little bit later on in the show. All right, man. Appreciate it.
You got it, Mike. Take care, man.
There's Paul, and of course, we take a look at the series coming up tonight. You can hear that game on 97.3 ESPN. As Paul said, can't believe they're playing this game tonight, and the Sixers are not going to be a part of it. We'll be back with more Sports Bash. So Dave Hale entered the game. Like Vince Velasquez before him, you can predict what happened. The Phillies went up 9-5 on a grand slam pinch hit homer by Andrew McCutchen. David Hale entered the game. The Phillies now trail 11-9 in the 6th inning. Can you imagine buying tickets to a game in which Vince Velasquez started and was relieved in part by David Hale? Seriously. I don't know how Dave Hale still has a job, but he's figured out a way to stay consistently awful, and that's something, I guess. 609-403-0973. Part of the problem the Phillies were in this spot to begin with a couple innings ago that tied the game up at 5 is because Odubel Herrera and Brad Miller collided, causing the ball to drop in front of them, and that brought home a couple of runs. And that's just the way that it's been for this team. Someone say the Phillies are going to Phillies. Couldn't have said it better myself. This team's a disaster. Utter disaster. You go up 5-0, cough up the lead. 9-5, cough up the lead. Now you're losing the game. Sports Bass Live, 97.3 ESPN. Unbelievable. Day baseball, free baseball, business person special. Get to see Vince Velasquez, David Hale. Get them while they're hot. All right, when we come back, football at 4. Jeff Mosher's in the house. We'll talk a little Eagles. 34 days till training camp starts. I can't wait. Somebody asked me a question on Twitter earlier, on the text board earlier, that I will address coming up in about 40 minutes from now. Has to do with the Eagles, Sixers, Phillies, and the Flyers. And it's not about who will win the championship next. So stick around for that, coming up in about 45 minutes from now. Mosher on the other side. Stick around. Football at 4.
a Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is 97.3 ESPN, home of the Philadelphia Eagles.
They've got him!
WENJ HD Millville, Atlantic City. 97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with Jeff Mosher.
My personality is I want to win badly. I want to win more Lombardis for Philadelphia and our fans. We got the greatest fans around, and I will do everything possible.
Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. This is Football at 4.
Yes, indeed. Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, drops tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., and brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bet and take your profit. Find out how. Go to PropSwap.com or download the PropSwap app today. Jeff Mosher's here from the Inside the Birds podcast. Tomorrow morning, I would imagine at 6 o'clock, a lot of Eagles conversation getting you. You're only 34 days away from the start of Eagles training camp. Moshe, how about that?
I know. It's around the corner, but I want it to feel like an eternity, just personally. Could use a nice summer break.
You could use some more time away from what's going to be a highly anticipated season.
That's right. I need to mentally prepare for it all.
Watching this Phillies game right now, coupled with the way the Sixers season ended, don't you just want something else?
Yeah, but every time you yearn for – I mean, we were yearning for the Philly season. We were yearning for the Sixers playoffs, weren't we? And then we were left disappointed. So it's not like the Eagles are coming off such a great season that you're thinking Super Bowl, although you never know. But, I mean – it's kind of tough right now, right?
No, you're definitely not thinking Super Bowl, but I think one thing, like, we talked about the Eagles 53. We'll kind of look at the defensive side of the ball a little bit more today, but I almost want to, kind of dive in a little deeper too on Nick Sirianni himself and like the expectations, how you're just like ready to see how this team is going to be presented and what they might look like and how different they might really be, just based on the coaching change.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and it's hard to, one thing that you really want to see from Nick Sirianni and his staff that I think is hard to measure just by watching, but almost by waiting and seeing, is talent development, because we constantly talk on Inside the Birds about this coaching staff, this head coach, Nick Sirianni, his emphasis on talent development and competition, developing talent through competition. We know that wasn't the strongest asset of the prior coaching staff, and that there were several positions that no matter what, just either had constant rotation of coaches, whether it was wide receiver or D-line, even though the D-line was good, there were always D-line coaches, or just in general wide receiver talent, where it was like you're just waiting for guys to develop, and it wouldn't happen, or it would be inconsistent, like with Nelson Aguilar. So, I mean, I really look forward to seeing how Nick Sirianni, the tone that he sets to his coaches and how his coaches then set the tone for the entire team, how that's manifested as far as talent development. And that's not going to be found out in training camp or even maybe in the first few months of the season. It's going to be a long-term thing.
Right. That's the part of it that is like, I want to see, not get to training camp, but get there to kind of see how they start implementing because we chronicled on Monday, wide receiver, who's going to be where, who's in the battle, who's this. Running back, same thing. There's a lot of battles just to get those battles off the ground and see how this new coaching staff kind of sees what has been perceived as a lot of misses by Howie Roseman, right? That's where I'm kind of interested to see if they're seeing the same thing that Peterson and his staff saw. Hey, is J.J. Arcega-Whiteside as crappy as Peterson said? Yep, yes, he is. We're not going to – you know what I mean? Like, those kind of things I think are going to be very interesting to see, and you might be able to find them out in August.
Yeah, some careers might get rescued. Some other ones may go in the tank. You never know. It just depends. That's the fascinating part of a new coaching staff is you get to know what they prioritize, what they look for, what they value, and then you get to see kind of the front office then adjust to that, like a good front office should do, as far as getting the right type of players in and the wrong players out.
Yeah, and I know I wanted to ask you too, because we're talking a little bit about coaches before we get to some defensive stuff here. When people talk about the importance of coaching and developing a guy like Stoutland, and there was some talk about him leaving, right? They almost left, and they got him to stay. You wonder like how important he is to the offensive line.
Well, I mean, all you had to do is hear Jordan Mailata say that he almost had a heart attack when he read the reports that Jeff Stoutland was leaving. I mean, you look at a guy like Mailata who'd never even played any form of American football, nothing other than the rugby that he was playing in Australia, and is sitting here today just 3 years later with an opportunity to become the left tackle for I guess 3.5 for the starting left tackle for the Philadelphia Eagles. And you can only imagine that he knows that he didn't just do this on his own without some really solid coaching and some really, really hard coaching, to be honest with you, drilling. And Jeff may have been, one of the guys from the last staff that gets to keep his job because of that reputation and because he actually did hold players accountable to the point where they realized that if they didn't do what he said, they weren't going to play and they weren't going to get better.
Jeff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast. I would imagine you guys did the 53 on Monday for the offensive side of the ball. You're probably working on looking at the defense. So we'll do a little preview of that since you are not back on the rest of the week here. And one area I'd like to get your really, looking at these defensive end spot, when they get to camp in 35 days, I feel like, man, we talk about how wide open things. You got Brandon Graham, you've got Derek Barnett, you've got Kerrigan and Josh Sweat. Who else is around that is interesting here?
Well, I mean, I think you named it there. I think the scheme is more interesting right now than the player, to be honest with you, because you look at guys like Jannard Avery and Kerrigan, and they're going to play some linebacker, but they're also going to rush the passer if they're on the team from that regard. So do we we've always focused on DN because we know Jim Schwartz is a 4-man rush kind of guy. Only occasionally is going to blitz. When he does blitz, it's going to be a corner or a linebacker, something that you'll see. But when you bring in a guy who, like Jonathan Gannon, has a Mike Zimmer-esque way of looking at things and wanting to do things, you can talk about linebackers as DNs. They walk up to the line, they rush the passer. You could have a 5-man rush with 3 defensive ends and 2 tackles on the field, with one of those defensive ends really masquerading at first as a linebacker. So, but the bottom line is Brandon Graham's going to be on the field. Fletcher Cox is going to be on the field. Javon Hargrave is probably going to be on the field a lot in pass rushing downs. And then you got to figure out some other guys. Ryan Kerrigan will be one. Josh Sweat will be one. Derek Barnett, I think, has to play a lot early for them to understand if this guy can A, hold up, and B, be continuously and repetitively successful. He has shown a lot of flashes at times when healthy in his career, but he has not had, I would say, 5 or 6 games where he's been that kind of first round pick that you're looking for. I mean, you want to see that consistency week in and week out.
Yeah, that's a good point. Is what he was 2016 or 2017 that he was drafted, and he really he really hasn't made his mark yet. Like, I don't know what he is. I don't know that he's a bust. I don't know that he's great. I don't know that he's scratching the surface as a Pro Bowler. Is he just a guy? I can't give you a fair opinion, I feel like, about him. If you were to ask me, hey, do you want him here? I would say, doesn't matter. I don't really care one way or the other. He doesn't do it for me.
Take it or leave it. Yeah. And that's kind of been his career, as you're saying. I mean, he's had some, 2 years ago, he had 6.5 sacks in 14 games, and he had 22 quarterback hits. And it's not a bad season. It's a good to decent season. It's really not bad. But if you want to put the context, well, he was the 14th overall pick, he should be getting 10 to 12 sacks. Well, then you're disappointed. I mean, when he was a rookie, he didn't start, but he played every game and he had 5 sacks and 16 hits and 2 fumble recoveries. Like, you saw as a rookie an impact that he would make as a situational pass rusher. But then he only played 6 games. What he is. And right, that's exactly what he might end up just being best at, which isn't a bad thing, by the way. It's bad because you were the 14th overall pick, but I'm saying that there's a role in this league for situational pass rushers.
The problem is on this team, they need more from him than a situational pass rusher because the guys they have behind him are
situational pass rushers. Exactly.
You know what I mean?
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and it's like he had the game against, I think it was San Francisco, I think last year, where he dominated the game. It was one of the better games that he's played. It was either San Francisco. It was early in the year. He had a big game, and you were like, okay, there you go. And, you don't get that. And he's been hurt a lot. But that's part of why you are who you are, right?
That is exactly it. The best ability is durability or availability, as Bill Parcells used to say. He had, again, that San Francisco game you were alluding to, where he had 2 hits, had a couple of tackles behind the line of scrimmage. I think he edged out Trent Williams, one of the best left tackles in the league, to make a stop behind the line of scrimmage. He had a half a sack in that game. That was a good game, and he had 2 sacks the week before against the Bengals. So you're looking at that Cincinnati game and San Francisco game and saying, all right, now I'm starting to see it. Yeah. But then Pittsburgh came, no sacks, no tackles for a loss. Then Baltimore, no sacks, no tackles for a loss, no quarterback hits. So then you go back-to-back games against 2 really good teams and good quarterbacks, and you did not produce. And that's kind of the story of this guy's career.
The defensive tackle spot should be deep. I mean, not deep. Should be, well, maybe it is deep. I think got some rookies, so we don't know. But Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, you're not going to – it's going to be hard-pressed to find a better tandem in the league than those 2.
Yeah, very top-heavy. I wouldn't quite call it deep. I would say very talented at the top with the 2 starters there. But who's your number 3 defensive tackle right now? Is it Milton Williams because he's a rookie and there's some buzz around him? Well, he's got a lot to prove. Plus, he's kind of smaller. He's going to be a guy who plays D-tackle and defensive end. Is it going to be Hassan Ridgeway, who has shown, like, not like Derek Barnett because he's not as explosive, but a decent enough player when he's out there, but has also had some injury issues. So you've got Ridgeway, you've got T.Y. McGill. I mean, you don't really Raekwon Williams is an undrafted free agent from Michigan State 2 years ago who got in a little bit last year. But none of, when you're talking about Raekwon Williams, T.Y. McGill, Hassan Ridgeway, and rookie Milton Williams, you're really just don't know. I mean, that's not a solid number 3 yet because no one's proven it.
You're right. Yep, absolutely. The Williams thing will be interesting. Like, you draft him in the 3rd round. Well, last year your 3rd round pick, Davion Taylor, you got skedaddle out of, right? Yeah. So are you going to go for a 2nd straight year with a project guy who you don't get a whole heck of a lot of rookie season worth from?
Yeah, I mean, not exactly apples to apples in that at least Milton Williams has played this position for a long time, has dominated the position at the college level, even if he did play at Louisiana Tech. Whereas I get what you're saying by project because you still want him to get the strength and the motor to be a defensive tackle.
Yeah, and he was a small college guy who was a kind of tweener.
Yeah. Davion, I mean, man. Listen, people are going to start to think that I dislike this guy, and that's not the case at all. I've never met him, and all indications are that he's a really good human being, a great guy, and you root for him to kind of overcome the tremendous odds against him. But as I've told you many times, and we've said on Inside the Birds many times, Adam and I are hard-pressed to find any other team that had this guy ranked higher than the 5th round, and some had him way lower than that, and it's not like it's perfectly understandable why. Is because he did not play a whole lot of football until he got to Colorado for, I think it was a year or 2, or I think it was just 1 year starting and did not play a traditional linebacker role even at Colorado that translates well to the NFL. So there's just a whole lot of football learning that he's got to do. I mean, it's great that he can run and chase down Lamar Jackson. That's a wonderful thing, but that's still a 20-yard gain that Lamar Jackson had, or whatever it was. So yeah. They got to figure it out with him.
Well, and I guess the comparison comes in that you can't go 2 years in a row, hopefully, without getting anything from a 3rd round pick. You're hoping the 3rd round pick comes in and can give you at least rotational snaps.
Yeah, I say this quite often, and I hope people understand. I understand that the draft is about your future and that you don't discard somebody after a year and you want them to really become the player that they should be by year 2 or 3, right? I totally get that. But it does not mean that year 1 is a freebie, that you should expect nothing, that it's acceptable to take a guy that you expect is going to be good in 3 years, but have given you nothing in year 1 and year 2 until you got there. Because you know what? Every game matters. Every year counts. Coaches get hired. Coaches get fired. Super Bowl dreams crash like they did last year for the Eagles. And if Davion Taylor's a really good player in 2 years from now, Mike, that's good. You could say, well, that worked. But what about all the damage that was done in year 1 and year 2 when you were expecting some kind of contribution?
That's 100% right. And that's why, and I know, Vinny Curry, you certainly have covered him a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Can Williams be that type of player where he plays outside, they move him into the inside? I feel like maybe he was a second-round pick, Vinny.
Yeah, I think a little bit different kind of player. Whereas Vinny was sort of an inside player under Chip Kelly because a linebacker would kind of come down as a pass rusher and maybe create like a 4 or 5-man front, and Vinny would maybe have to beat a tackle or a guard in the gap between a guard and a tackle. Whereas I still see Milton Williams is more of like a 3 technique, natural 3 technique, Fletcher, which is what a Fletcher Cox would play and burst up the middle. Similarities in maybe athleticism and burst, but different in body build and natural position.
Gotcha. All right, let me go to linebacker here where this is interesting. Eric Wilson, they brought in. They have TJ Edwards. He got a lot of snaps. Alex Singleton got a lot of snaps. Sean Bradley, a draft pick from last year. You mentioned Taylor. Jannard Avery is in the linebacker group now. So it seems that this is like a lot like the wide receiver core without the top end guys, but a lot of guys who are all different battling for really 2 spots.
Yeah, and well, actually, no, probably even battling for more. I mean, Eric Wilson.
2 spots on the field.
I got it. Okay, right, because they're going to be in nickel mostly, so they'll have 2 linebacker formations. Eric Wilson is a starting linebacker. The conversation ends there. Eric Wilson is a starting linebacker. Who's the other starting linebacker? Don't know. Is it Alex Singleton? We'll see. Is he probably the lead horse? Perhaps, because he played well last year, but he still has to be that guy in this defense. Could it be anybody else? I don't know. Could it be Jannard Avery? Maybe if they're in a certain formation where that strong side linebacker is going to come down on the line and rush the passer. If they're 3rd and 2 and they want to stop the run but still be in nickel in case the team passes, then maybe you've got Alex Singleton or Sean Bradley or Davion Taylor. There's a whole lot of competition there to whittle itself out. But all you can say right now is Eric Wilson's going to be on the field probably nickel and dime and in base. He's your starting linebacker. After that, it's just put him all in the blender, put them all in competition and see who comes out of there.
That's it's one of those things like Edwards is good against the run.
I forgot about Edwards. Yeah, he's in the mix too.
But how many times is in a nickel defense you're going to put the guy who's the run stuffer out there? Right.
I almost think that whereas in the past under Jim, Mike, we've seen you have your nickel defense, your dime defense, right? And you have your nickel linebackers, your dime linebacker. I would sense that under Jonathan Gannon that you might have different variations of your nickel defense, which means you may have, again, if you want to stop the run, if it's 3rd and 3, but you want to be in nickel because the other team comes out 3 wide, but you still think they might run, you might have TJ Edwards or Alex Singleton out there with Eric Wilson. But if it's 3rd and 7, and you want to hit the quarterback a little bit, well, you're going to have Eric Wilson out there for coverage, and you're going to have probably maybe like a Jannard Avery or somebody else, Davion Taylor, whoever, who you think can rush the Ryan Kerrigan, who can rush the passer a little bit. If it's you don't want to hit the quarterback, but you don't want to stop the run, you just want 2 really good cover guys because it's 3rd and 6, and they got a good tight end and a good slot receiver, then it's Eric Wilson and I don't know. That's what's left to be figured out. Does Davion Taylor make that huge step because they want him to be a cover guy? Or is it going to be Sean Bradley, who's not really a good cover guy, but he may be the last man standing at that point? Injuries are going to also help decide some of these competitions too.
Yep, we know corner's a mess, right? That we really know. That's almost like not even worth going over just because you could pick him out of a hat and probably figure out who has a better shot of being on that depth chart right now. Accurate?
Yes, very, very accurate. They got a number 1 and a lot of number 5s.
There you go. And then the safety spot, you've got Anthony Harris and McLeod, and I think those 2 are solid, depending on McLeod, if he'll be ready to go. And then after that, you got the Andrew Adams, who they signed, Jacoby Stevens, I guess, if they're going to play him at safety or linebacker, we don't know. Marcus Epps, who they seem to like. Elijah Riley's out there. So you've got a pretty – and who was the kid they drafted last year from Kayvon Wallace?
Mm-hmm.
So you've got a the safety spot's another one, much like the receivers, where you have your two guys and then everybody else.
Yeah, and one thing I'm curious about, I'm glad you brought up Jacoby Stevens, who's going to play linebacker but has a safety background. I'm sure they will figure out certain ways to use him advantageously, and I think they drafted the kid Patrick Johnson from Tulane, right, who was a pass rusher, but they're going to turn into a linebacker, if I'm not mistaken. So the one thing we don't know is, and that I look forward to finding out, is how they kind of count these tweener players, what value they see, what skill set they can bring, and if they truly can be tweeners, how does that impact their numbers at certain positions? You know, think about last year. I think they went a little light on corner coming out of training camp because they knew that Jalen Mills, who was a safety, could move back to corner, which he wound up doing when there were injuries if needed. So if you have three or four players who you think can occupy multiple positions, if you have a guy like Jacoby Stevens, who really impresses, even though he's a late round pick, and you want him on your 53, do you go lighter at linebacker because he's made your team as a safety, for example, or do you not even count them positionally? You're just taking the best, 20 some odd, like, don't count the defensive linemen, the best 20, or 20 back end type of players, and you'll figure out where they go instead of, we need 6 safeties and 4 corner. You know what I'm saying? Like, that opens up the door to more versatility and less structure as far as numbers at each position.
Should be interesting. I know the guys on the Inside the Birds podcast will go deeper into this tomorrow morning. It drops at 6 a.m. Now, I'm just anticipating that. Am I accurate on that?
It does drop at 6 a.m.
No, that you're talking about the defense.
Oh, yes. We'll be doing the 53-man roster projection defense edition. That's correct.
So they'll go a lot deeper into what we just did here on Football at 4. Jeff Mosher. All right, man. Take care.
Have a great one.
All right. At Jeff Mosher NFL here on the Sports Bash. Brought to you by my guys over at Prop Swap. Prop Swap is the type of thing that right now seems to be perfect for all you sports bettors out there because these NBA playoffs are so wide open. You can get in on the Clippers while their value's really down. If they get a win in the game tomorrow night at home and then get that series back to 2-2, I'm sure that odds will change. So you can buy that ticket today and then sell it if they even up that series. Or what if you like the Atlanta Hawks? They're the longest shots right now. Buy those Atlanta Hawk tickets. If the Hawks get up 1-0, you can flip that ticket tomorrow at PropSwap.com. It's buying and selling sports bets. It's the best odds in the country. The odds here for Atlanta or Milwaukee might be a lot different than they are in other places. So people from those places will sell their tickets at PropSwap that you can go in and buy them and get better odds or try to sell them. PropSwap.com. Download the PropSwap app today. By the way, the Phils have chipped a run on the board. It's now 11-10 in the 7th. They were up 5-0. It was 5-5. They went up 9-5. They were down 11-9, and now it's 11-10. We'll keep you updated when we come back. Do you remember? Stick around. All right, let's take a look at what happened on this day, June 23rd. By the way, Coach Jimmy Lynam's going to join us at 5 o'clock tonight. Stick around for that. My producer is Josh Henning.
What's up?
You know what's up? The Phillies
The Phillies game is
are up.
ridiculous.
The bat, that is. They're not up yet. Luke Williams, by the way, with an RBI to make it an 11-10 game. Luke!
That's two pinch hitters now. They're doing more work than half the lineup.
All right. Somebody asked, did I miss the Simmons trade scenario? No, I said 440. There's only 429. That proves to me that people don't really listen. They heard me talk about it. I told you what time. You asked if I missed it. I said 440. It's only 429. So that's coming up at 440. I promise. Remind me.
Sure.
All right, here we go. Here's what happened on this day. Ready?
Sure.
Here we go.
Yeah.
1961, Phillies overcome a 9-run deficit, trailing 11-2 after
Perfect.
7 innings. They score 4 in the 8th and 6 in the 9th to beat the Pirates 12-11 at Forbes Field in Pittsburgh. Can we see like the reincarnation of that game in 1961 today? It happened on this day that they won 12-11. Now they were up by 5, then they were up by 4, and then they were down by 2. So it's not quite they were down by 9, but it could
But
be.
they are currently down 11-10.
Yes.
So they could still win 12-11.
No, that's what the part is. They could come back and win a game 12-11
That'd be interesting. On the same day. This
on
day.
the same day. That's bizarre.
That only baseball, though.
1971, 50 years ago, Rick Wise goes 2 for 4 with 2 homers. Oh, and he threw a no-hitter as well.
Oh, is that all? Wow.
He threw out the first pitch today.
Did he really?
Yeah, 50 years ago today, he went 2 for 4 with 2 home runs and pitched a no-hitter in the game.
Well, apparently Vince Velasquez got a tiny bit of inspiration, then imploded.
He went all Rick Wise today, drove in a run.
He did drive in a run.
No no-hitter, though.
No hitter.
It's thought of to be one of the greatest performances of all time. The pitcher knocks in the runs and throws a no-hitter. He went all Little League on him.
You notice how Todd never brought up Rick Wise talking about Shohei Ohtani.
He conveniently left that out.
Right. Come on, Todd.
1988, the Charlotte Hornets and the Miami Heat begin their NBA expansion draft. Now, of those two franchises, the Heat have obviously been more successful.
Way more successful.
The Hornets have not been very successful.
But part of it is that the Heat lucked into Pat Riley and the Hornets lucked into Michael Jordan.
Well, the Heat, the expansion draft, I don't remember who the Heat got. I think the Hornets got like Kelly Tripucka was like their guy. I forget who the Heat got. But the Heat had the drawing power of Miami.
Right.
And then they got Dwayne Wade.
Well, no, first they got Pat. Pat came down there. Then they acquired Alonzo Mourning and Tim Hardaway.
They had that crew.
So they had a foundation of, okay, at least we're not a horrible franchise. Then they got Dwayne Wade. Then they got Shaq. They already had Pat Riley. And that kind of, launched everything. But to me, Pat Riley going down was a big
I don't
first
remember
step.
the Hornets ever being good.
I think the Hornets have always been a team, even before they moved to New Orleans and they became the Bobcats, became the Hornets again. They've always just been a team that they're like no better than like a 5 seed. They're just they're just a guy, Mike.
That's what they are. All right, 1988, Yankees manager Billy Martin is fired for the 5th time. Lou Piniella is his replacement. How do you hire the same guy 5 times?
That's got to be the strangest situation in
It
sports.
really
history,
is. How do you say, we fired you, we're going to bring you back. We fired you, we're going to bring you back. Like, that's almost not even real life.
Like, at what point does somebody turn to George Steinbrenner and be like, are you really rehiring this guy? Why? It's like
I can't even imagine, like, if that happened. You talk about retreads.
Oh, my goodness. That's like a whole nother level of retread.
Right?
That's like a branding opportunity.
I think I might just do it just to see what kind of reaction you'd get today. Hire the same guy 5 times. Can you imagine if the Sixers brought Brett Brown back and said, you know what? Doc Rivers was the problem. We don't think it was Brett Brown. We're going to bring him back.
Imagine Phillies brought back Gabe Kapler.
Well, they'd probably be a lot better than they are now.
You sure about that?
Yes. I think Girardi's doing a terrible job. 1999, the Hockey Hall of Fame announced its newest members, notably Wayne Gretzky, the all-time leading scorer, nearly 1,000 points. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame immediately. They waived the waiting period. Fair or unfair? The Kids Court. Remember that show?
I remember Kids Court.
Kids Court. Fair or unfair?
Unfair.
You thought he should have waited.
Everybody has to wait. Why? What makes him special?
Yeah, I don't know why they thought. I mean, he had 1,000 points more than the next guy. I mean, is that enough to say, hey, guess what? You had 1,000 points more than the next guy. You're automatically in.
No, you should have made him wait. This is where we talked about earlier. The Baseball Hall of Fame is better than the Hockey Hall of Fame. This is one reason why.
Well, the Baseball Hall of Fame is better than every Hall of Fame.
Yeah, in terms of its afterglow and its halo and its image, sure.
Yeah.
I think every Hall of Fame has its value.
Sure, I'm not devaluing the other ones I'm saying. At no point did I say, now you sound like a listener. At no point did I say the other ones have no value. Just the baseball one is the standard of Hall of Fames.
Well, saying it's the standard is different than saying it's just better than everything else, Because, a lot of times we use words like better, great, wonderful, and it's just so just.
Well, we had this conversation earlier for people, and I said nobody takes a trip and says, I'm going to go to the Hockey Hall of Fame. You happen to be in Toronto, and it's something to do. You don't say, I want to go to Springfield. You happen to be in Boston, and you're like, Same with Canton. I mean, Canton, you might make a trip there, but it's more like, hey, I'm in Ohio, I'm in Cleveland area, I'm going to go check out you have to really want to go to Cooperstown. Like, that's a destination.
And as you've explained, it technically is a destination because you have to stay there for a couple of days.
There's nowhere else to go. You're not near anything.
Right.
Like when I was in Atlanta, I was like, the College Football Hall of Fame's here. Let's go check it out. I didn't say, I'm going to Atlanta to go to College Football Hall of Fame. Now, you might do that.
I am that guy.
Yeah. But baseball, you got to like Jeff Kerr, he wasn't on Monday's show because you went to Baseball Hall of Fame. You have to really go there. Like, you have to make plans.
Go out of your way.
Yeah. Where did I leave off here? 2005 NBA Finals. Spurs beat Pistons 81-74. Game 7. It's the third title by the Pistons. MVP, Tim Duncan. Third MVP award as well. The big man reigned supreme in 2005.
That was also one of the least watched NBA Finals of the last 20 years.
Yeah, we talked about this today, too.
Yes, we did.
So the Pistons didn't have any stars on that team.
And people always complain about, all these different things. But yet, when you finally got the team that didn't have the superstar on it, the one team, nobody cared.
Well, why would they?
But that's what the hypocrisy is. People complain all the time. You can win, the coach, blah, blah, blah. It's happened one time in 40 years, and nobody cared. You're all hypocrites.
And the Spurs were the most boring team, too. All right, here's a question. Could Tim Duncan thrive in today's game?
You know what? I don't know if he could thrive because I think Tim Duncan was so specific in his skill set. I don't know how he would do. I mean, he would still be a great player, but I don't know if he would thrive.
Power forward is the one position that has been, obsolete.
There really is no power forward.
Right, exactly. So if you were a classic power forward,
you were probably a center.
You are the guy that is finding a tough role in today's game.
You have to be a center now.
Like of yesteryear, the point guard, the shooting guard, and the small forward, they're about all the same guy now. The power forward's the guy who has been squeezed out of the league.
Right. There's no more Anthony Masons.
Charles Oakley.
None of those guys exist anymore.
Like Lonzo Mourning. He was like a 6'10 center.
Remember Reggie Evans?
Yeah, he played for the Sixers.
He did. Played for the Raptors, too.
2011, the Cavaliers select Kyrie Irving with the first pick in the 2011 NBA draft.
Worked out pretty well for them.
And they won a title.
With LeBron.
They weren't very good with Kyrie Irving.
No, they weren't.
They were pretty good with Kyrie Irving and LeBron.
Correct.
Last one. On this day, 2016.
Yes.
With the first pick in the NBA draft, the Philadelphia 76ers select Ben Simmons, guard, LSU. Will we see Ben Simmons back?
As of right now, I would say Ben Simmons in another uniform next year. That's
It
my
happened
prediction.
on this day, June 23rd, 2016. The Sixers take Ben Simmons, and here we are. Now you want him gone.
And you know how to make him gone.
What?
And you know how to make him gone.
How's
And,
that?
well, you'll explain next.
Oh, the trade scenarios. I got you. Yep, I promised trade scenarios on Ben Simmons, and I did some research on some trade scenarios. So here they are coming up next. All right, Sports Bets this hour brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bet, take your profit, find out how. PropSwap.com. Download the PropSwap app today. All right, so obviously Ben Simmons, the trade scenarios are coming up. Everybody is going to be looking at different trade scenarios for Ben Simmons and what they may be able to get for him. Now, Daryl Morey said, we're committed to this group. This is a really good group. When he was pressed about Ben Simmons and the future, he kind of left the door open that something might happen with Ben. He says, any move that'll help our team win a championship or improve our odds, we'll look at if it makes sense, which obviously he's going to say. So a couple of moves that I have kind of been able to find in terms of what's out there, who might be available, what type of player you might look at. The one deal that keeps coming up over and over again is the one that includes CJ McCollum. Like a lot of people talk about Portland and Dame Lillard. If they're going to make a trade with Portland, it would most likely be CJ McCollum. There's no way, in my opinion, Ben Simmons is getting you Dame Lillard, not after what we just saw. And that's including throwing in Tyrese Maxey. That's including, Matisse Thybulle, anything on that level. McCollum, maybe. Here's the one thing with McCollum. He is a wretched defensive player. He is a very poor defensive player. You're losing that. You're getting CJ McCollum 23 points per game, but you're getting a guy who's not very good defensively. Every trade that involves Ben Simmons, you have to remember what you're now losing. And I get it. Oh, I hate this. I don't like that. He doesn't shoot here. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. But now, instead of Trae Young scoring 21, maybe he's scoring 41. I mean, they just don't have a guy that can defend that level of player. I mean, they don't have a guy that can, think about what Ben Simmons did to Bradley Beal. We forget about that in looking back at the first series. Simmons is able to defend Bradley Beal. He's able to defend Trae Young. He's able to defend that level of player. I know a lot of people don't value that, but just keep this in mind. If you get CJ McCollum, you're getting a scorer, but you're getting a lousy defensive player. Another possibility, okay, and I think you got to keep in mind when the deal that they have on the table is Ben Simmons for Robert Covington and CJ McCollum. So right now, that is the one that was probably the top one. The second one was Ben Simmons for Dejounte Murray and the number 12 pick from the San Antonio Spurs. I mean, if you're getting back Murray, who, Murray's a nice player, can shoot the three. You're getting the number 12 pick in the draft, in a good draft. But is that a tough sell, for you guys out there to get that Murray is the best player that you possibly could get back? And I can understand people out there saying, what do you think you're going to get? He was terrible in the postseason. Do you think that getting Murray, it's almost like just get him out of here because I want to get him out of here type of deal. You're just taking another guy who is not good enough. You're just taking that guy because you're so fed up with Ben Simmons, even though the guy you're getting back in return is simply just an okay. Like Murray's okay. He's like, 15 points a game, can shoot the three. I think he shot about 40% from three. Maybe what is that? Where's Murray from three? Actually, no. Murray was terrible from three this year. He was 41%. He has to be better than that in his past, right? Did he have a bad year or something? I know, yeah, you're right. He was hurt a lot this year. This year, he shot 31%. I could have sworn that he was a better three-point shooter than that in his career. I got to take a look back at that. Actually, he played 67 games this year, Murray. Yeah, he shot 39% from three. That was a couple of years ago, though. And by the way, he didn't shoot it all that much. Maybe I got it mixed up with somebody else out there in San Antonio, because a guy who can't shoot the three all that well, who just plays point guard and scores 15 points a game, I already got that guy. I mean, Ben Simmons scores about 15 points a game in the regular season. I mean, Murray doesn't shoot it all that well. Am I thinking of a different guy that shot the ball pretty well out there for them this past year? Probably not. I thought maybe I was just off on Murray. I know DeRozan's another name that has come up, and DeRozan doesn't shoot the three at all. He's a very good mid-range guy. He's very good at shooting the ball short, painted area, 2-point jumpers, average 21 points a game. But that would be – so I would probably pass on that. The number 12 pick is something that I guess people somewhat interested in. It's a good draft. I have seen a lot of the Ben Simmons for Andrew Wiggins. Man, his name just blanked right out of my head. Andrew Wiggins. Now, Wiggins is another guy. Scores. He's okay defensively, not great. Very inconsistent scorer. I don't know that I love Andrew Wiggins. He seems just like another guy you're going to be pissed off at. I mean, he's another guy who just, I don't know that he loves it. Does he work hard enough? He's all of that. Ben Simmons for Kemba Walker and a first-round pick. Now, that's an interesting one because I like Kemba Walker. Problem is he healthy? He was disappointing in Boston. I think Simmons is a good fit for them out there because he's a good complement for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And you got Walker, who would be a really good pick-and-roll player, I think, with Joel Embiid. He is very good mid-range, not a volume shooter, but I thought in Boston he really disappointed. He was an excellent player in Charlotte, but that knee problem has to be bigger. But it has to be evaluated. You got to find out with that. So I like that trade on the surface, but don't love the fact that knee might be a problem. He didn't even play in the playoffs this year. Ben Simmons for Malcolm Brogdon and TJ Warren. Brogdon's a very good defensive player. So you're getting a good defensive player to replace Ben Simmons. Brogdon's an okay scorer. Not great. He scored well this year in Indiana. Can he bring that here? That one interests me. Warren's just a veteran player, probably a nice guy. He might be a guy to replace Danny Green if Danny Green walks. So Brogdon for Simmons would be an interesting one. Both rookie of the years. Basically, you're getting. Brogdon's a good defensive player. He is, and he's turned into a much better scorer. So that's one that I think is interesting. All right, gave you the Simmons for C.J. McCollum. All right, Ben Simmons for Zach LaVine. I've heard this one a lot. I think you almost have to do this one in a second now, based on how far Ben mentally has fallen. He scored 27 points a game. Not a great three-point shooter, but getting better. And he's a terrible defensive player. That's one problem with Zach LaVine. He's a terrible, not a bad one. He's terrible. That's why Chicago would do that deal. You'd say, why would they do that? Well, Zach LaVine gives up as many points as he scores. So there's another one. I gave you Golden State, Ben Simmons, Andrew Wiggins, and the Sixers would probably get back a first-round pick in that deal as well. But I think Wiggins' reputation is just kind of – you wouldn't want him here. I don't think people would love that. Then another Spurs one. Ben Simmons for DeMar DeRozan and a 2022 first-round pick with Lonnie Walker, who was a first-round pick a couple of years ago. I mean, DeRozan's a guy. Is he a number 2 scorer behind Embiid? Is that okay? Is that enough? He doesn't shoot the 3 a lick. So you're basically getting another version of Tobias Harris. So those are some of the Ben Simmons trades that I have found. I don't know if you guys have found some other ones, but those were some of the better ones that I've seen. I don't know that any of those push your pile. But when we come back, we'll talk to the coach, Jimmy Lynam, here on the Sports Bash. As a coach, how much can you demand from your player in the offseason? We'll ask him that on the Sports Bash, live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash.
all of South Jersey. This is 97.3 ESPN, home of the Philadelphia 76ers.
Simmons pokes it away, steals it, sidesteps him and jams a two-hand throwdown.
WENJ HD Millville, Atlantic City. This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. Now, live inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, here's Mike Gill.
All right, final hour of the show, and of course, we got so much to dive into here. Coach Jimmy Lynam, NBC Sports Philadelphia, going to step in here and join me for some conversation on what's next for the Sixers. Obviously, tonight the Eastern Conference Finals gets underway. The Bucks and the Hawks. That game will be in Milwaukee. The game was supposed to be in Philly tonight. It was supposed to be here. Why not? Well, let's bring the coach in and get his thoughts on what happened in Game 7 and now what has to happen for the franchise. Coach, you know it's a very reactionary town. When something that happens, they want something changed. What did we see in Game 7 that has us talking today about the offseason?
Well, it really, like what you saw, I have to just be honest and say, to me, it's inexplicable what you saw. Could the Sixers have lost Game 7, let's say, under a certain set of circumstances where you would put it in the category one of those things? The unusual happens. Home teams win Game 7 a huge amount of the time. I'm going to say it this way: if you'd asked me beforehand, how can the Sixers possibly lose Game 7? I'd say, well, Trae Young, who's a terrific player, has a monster, and their second best player, Bogdanovich, plays Kano. They split, 65 to 70 points between them. But Trae Young was 5 for 23. He was fair at best, and Bogdanovich barely played. He played 20 minutes, scored 4 points, 2 for 8 from the field. So, you'll have to explain to me how the Sixers could possibly lose that game. For me, it can't happen.
Yeah, very inexplicable. I like the word. I guess, everybody is saying, okay, Ben Simmons, he did not have a good game. That's obvious. He didn't have a good series, and they won games in the series. So is it as simple as Ben didn't play well in Game 7, hence they lost?
No, I guys have to do this, Mike, and I know it's going to sound like I'm coming to Ben's defense. I'm not. Ben played poorly. He cannot be invisible like that. However, I'm going to make a statement, and then I'll follow it up with 2 thoughts. The statement is the following. The 76ers lost Game 7, plain and simple, because Kevin Huerter was by far the best offensive player in the building on Friday night. Correct. Kevin Huerter, who 3/4 of the people listening right now never heard of before this series started. The Sixers played tremendous defense, believe it or not, in that game. But to quote Doc Rivers, they were horrendous at the offensive end. And to be that bad as they were on offense, it's way more than Ben Simmons. Tobias Harris, horrendous. Joel Embiid, horrendous. Yes. That's how bad they were offensively when Kevin Huerter literally by himself beat the Philadelphia 76ers Game 7 at home in Wells Fargo.
Yeah, there's a lot there. Obviously, I was in the building that night, and you're looking around, and you're like, hey, what do I do here? So what could have been done differently? Seth Curry's matched up on him. George Hill, it seems that they kept finding the mismatch. Is it that Huerter just was that outstanding, or did the Sixers not have the right plan once he got going?
Well, yeah, I don't even want to go there. To give Huerter credit. By the way, this is the same Kevin Huerter who one game in this series scored, are you ready? How about 0 points? Okay? That's how good, who we're talking about. This is not exactly the next coming of LeBron James. I think Huerter's a good player. But my point is, that Huerter, fine, somebody is welcome to have a good game, but you can't respond at the other end of the court. Really, do you know how bad this offensive performance was by this team? It's so much more than just Ben Simmons. As bad as somebody sitting listening right now thinks that Ben Simmons was, okay, I'll accept it. You ready? Tobias and Joe are on the same doorstep with them. And you know I hate to bury guys.
Yeah.
But that's what I saw, plain and simple.
Well, and I guess, all right, you're looking at this team struggle offensively, and I guess we'll go back to, hey, the point guard helps flow the offense. Did the rest of the guys struggle because he was struggling? Or why were Harris and Embiid – I mean, Embiid scored 29, 30 points. He had 8 turnovers.
Mike, he had 8 turnovers, 3 of which he threw to the other team, like starting their fast break. Come on, give me a break. And in Tobias's case, I don't care what you're running. All of a sudden, Tobias is free under the basket for a layup that you're going to make literally in a CYO game.
Yeah.
Please, it's 3 stone-cold open layups. It's in Game 7 of a series in the NBA to send you to the Eastern Championship. Come on, I don't want to hear it.
Oh, I can agree with that 100%. I mean, he's 8 for 24, and how many layups? I'm saying, oh my gosh, you're missing some bunnies here.
Well, so when you start putting all this together, I mean, please, I mean, these are your star guys. These 3 guys are making their own contracts to make over $400 million. I mean, come on, Mike. My expectation is, guys, I can go out on Broad Street and get guys to put a uniform on. I need you to play when the lights come on, when the pressure's the most. This moment, plain and simple, you tell me. It was too big. They were not ready to answer the bell in a big moment.
So isn't that troubling if this is the same crew you've had for 3 with Tobias, but Ben and Joel? If that's the answer, does Daryl Morey have to consider that this moment was too big for those guys?
You heard my word in the beginning. It's inexplicable. I've watched a lot of basketball. I know how good these guys are. How can they not? I mean, they already won the game they had to win. Game 6 on the road, having, the monkey on your back in Atlanta. They wanted it. They should have walked out to revel in the crowd and just knock this team off the block, please.
Yeah.
I can't explain how they didn't do it. I know how good these guys are. Yes, Joel was impaired. You're not supposed to have anywhere near the kind of turnovers he had. Come on, Ben, you can't be invisible. Tobias, please. Make players fucking make your whole life.
Coach Jimmy Lynam, this is, the future now moves forward here. We look forward. Okay, that was Game 7. Inexplicably disappointing.
For a second. Okay, I'm sorry, Mike. Say again. I lost you for a second. My car's acting up.
Yeah, so Game 7, inexplicably disappointing. So is it so disappointing that you have to consider shaking this team up, or do you say, I know what you say. I watch a lot of basketball, and these guys can do it. Do you bring that crew back and say, I know they can do it, I'm going to bring it back, or no, it's time to do something?
Yeah, it's obviously your question is on point. It's a great question. I don't have the answer. I'm still in shell shock. If I were a decision maker or party to the decision, I'd need a little time to process it. Daryl Morey and his guys, and with the coaches, with Doc, they're going to have to take a little while. I still believe in this team. Maybe I'm wrong, and I'm not going to tell anybody they're crazy if they come back at me and say, come on, Simmons has done this over and over. How can you expect different results? I think the dramatic end of this thing is going to force a lot of people to face a lot of reality, and Ben included.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that enough to get him from being a 33% free throw shooter in the playoffs to a respectable, let's say, 2 out of 3, 66? By taking a different approach this summer? I can't answer that, but I'm just speaking from the heart when I say, if I owned this team, I would not be ready, and I was the decision maker, I would not be ready to abandon. No, I believe in this team. Now, does that mean you don't have to make some tweaks here and there? No, I think you do.
Yeah.
The bench, let's be honest, was disappointing, and I've been a champion of the bench all year long. Not good enough. Not good enough in this series.
Well, you coach, so let's look at it from that aspect. If you're the coach and here's Ben where he is, and I think there was an article where Jimmy O'Brien said, hey, where has Ben improved? And the room is silent. If you're the head coach and he's back and he's the same player for the 4th year that he was the 3rd year as he was the 2nd year, how do you get more from that?
I don't know if I understood that question. How do you get more from what?
How do you get him to give you more than what he's currently giving you?
Yeah, good question. Oh, well, to me, that answer is obvious. You have to go about the program, meaning improving his areas of deficiency in a different way than has been going on for the last 4 years. You got to flip the switch.
Yeah.
I call turn the channel.
Mm-hmm.
You go from watch. This is not original. You turn the channel. You go from Frankenstein to Disney. Just turning the channel. Yeah, it's that simple. Different approach. Totally different. What you've been doing hasn't been working. Forget putting videos up of you playing nonsense, 3-on-3 or whatever, making 3-point shot. Forget that. No, we got to get your foul shot. We're at crunch time. You can go out and make 2 out of 3 free throws.
I mean, if you were to be the coach and you see these videos and you're the coach and you see him pregame shooting the ball, we've all seen him making the 3, shooting the corner.
Yeah, we do. Agreed. Yes.
So
yes.
Would you not approach him and say, Ben, I've seen you make this shot. What is holding you back from doing this in the game?
Yeah. Again, you're right on target. He does make these shots pregame. He does put in time in these summers, but that whatever has been done and up to this point in time has been unable to flip the switch to get him to play. And I'm going to use the word, a normal game of NBA basketball, meaning you're open at 14 feet, you jump in the air and shoot a ball. So whatever takes place, I'm not suggesting he's going to play 5-on-5 in the summer league. No, that's not needed. But somehow he's got to play some structured, organized basketball, in my opinion, albeit it could be 3-on-3, could be just half court, but he has to participate in a 3-on-3 game like 99.9999% of people who are going to play 3-on-3 this afternoon in gyms throughout the world. When you're open for a jump shot, you jump in the air and shoot a ball.
Well, I guess another question that people ask me all the time. I never coached in the NBA. You did. You call a play and say, I want you to come off this catch and shoot. And it doesn't happen.
Hold on. Let me ask you. I got to stop you. Why are you assuming that somebody called a play for him to come off with a catch and shoot? Why are you assuming that?
Oh, I'm not. I'm just saying. So if I said, I'm going to call this play and I want you to catch and shoot, if you do not, this will happen. My question, I guess, is, are we past that where a coach can do that and actually have that heavy-handedness and dictate that? Or do these players have so much power that you cannot say, like Brett said, I want you to shoot 1 a game? That didn't happen. Can I call a play that says, hey, I trust you. I'm going to call a play because I trust you so much to take that shot, and if you don't, you're going to sit next to me. Can that not happen in today's world?
Yeah, of course it can happen, but watch. I would suggest, just like it's no different, I think, in anything, this is me, you can beat your kids over the head or you can get them on board, where you're trying to a common goal. We understand. We're in this together, dude. All right. The same thing with Ben Simmons. I think he's at a point where he realizes what you just said makes sense. I would just tweak one thing that you just said. I don't ever need Ben Simmons to come off a screen and be a catch and shoot guy. Ever. Okay? You don't need that.
Right.
That's the same kind, and I'm not trying to be a wise guy with you.
Oh, sure.
The same kind of conversation that I had to listen to for 4 years about 3-point shooting. You ready? I don't ever need Ben Simmons to take a 3-point shot. What I need him to make a foul shot in clutch time.
Yeah.
And to do that, to have a foundation whereby he can go up confidently and make a free throw, I think what he needs to shoot a pull-up jumper off the dribble. So, yes, let's do your thing. Have a play where he gets a ball in his hands on a wing and comes off somebody, and he takes 2 dribbles to the middle of the court, gets to 14 feet, jumps and shoots a ball.
Yeah. Oh, and a lot it's funny because I watched him in the summer league in these videos the other day, and 5 times in that summer league, he comes off the screen at the elbow, pulls up, swish, and you're thinking, what happened to that part of your game? We've never seen that part consistently. He's maybe done it once or twice in an NBA game.
Agreed.
Yeah. Obviously, he's got to get past that. I didn't realize this, Coach, that he shot 70% from the free throw line his rookie year in those playoffs. He went from 70, he's down to 30. He was 60 in the regular season. If he shoots 60 in this series, the series they would have won in 4 games had he simply shot his average. So that's a big problem here is the free throw
question.
shooting. And I guess the free throw shooting manifested itself to the rest of his game. Can that be restored?
You're absolutely right. I think it did. I think it started the whole spiral for him personally. Unfortunately, I think it was contagious. Somebody can tell me I'm crazy.
No,
Joel Embiid.
I agree exactly with what you just said, Coach. I think the rest of the team realized we are who we are because of who he is, and he's not who he is, so therefore we are not who we are right now.
Yeah, and Mike, and picture what you just said. I'm listening to you, okay? You watched him shoot jumpers off the dribble at the elbow in the Vegas Summer League. I was there. I remember that. Shoot 70% as a rookie in a playoff setting, okay? I have a brother who has a great phrase. He said, when you fall down that rabbit hole and start sliding, it's real, real tough to grab hold. And that's where I think this guy is. I think he slid mentally, and he's right now. You heard him say it after the game. I have to get myself right mentally. And somehow, with the help of this team, as it pertains to his basketball game, that's what he has to do. That's the start of getting him back to where he can be. Now, whether that is the 76er or not remains to be seen.
Definitely remains to be seen. I guess everybody would wonder, if you're an organization, do you have faith that you can regain that mentally? I mean, they tried that with one guy before and it didn't work, and he's down in Orlando now.
Yeah, and in one sense, a very fair parallel on your part, but in a second sense, let me be a wise guy. Mickey Mouse and Mickey Mantle. Come on. Ben Simmons he's an all-world caliber player in what he does, please. But I have to be honest, to those detractors out there, I hear you, meaning his flaws are so dramatic that even though these great other things he does, what comes out in the wash at the end of the day is very questionable as how good is this guy in terms of the goal of being, we want to win a championship.
I don't know that there's been a more polarizing player ever than this gentleman here. But that being said, they have other issues, obviously. You don't get knocked out in the second round, as Morey said. And by the way, he said, if we're just squeaking by in the second round, we're probably not good enough to win a championship. So that could have been fine. We get by Atlanta, but you might get the floor wiped up by Milwaukee here because you're a little far away from where they are. So what does this?
Yeah, by the way, I have to interject, Mike. I don't buy that. If there was ever a year where somebody can win a championship that might be, let's say, a little compromised, this is it. I think this team was ready to win a championship. Yes, I do. That's just me.
Okay, I agree. That's what Morey said yesterday. He said, if we're just squeaking by, maybe we're not good enough anyway. So that being said, you mentioned the bench, but do they need to upgrade something in the starting? Danny Green, do you bring him back? Do you say no, the younger? Because Morey indicated that they have younger players that they think could really take a jump next year. Do you agree with that instead of finding another way to improve the starting lineup?
Yeah, I'd have to know exactly. I assume Tyrese Maxey would be at the front of that list, and rightly so. I think he had a terrific year. He had one really outstanding playoff game. There should be a high expectation that he's going to do nothing but get better. But what other, players he's talking about in terms of young guys who are, ready to come in and play at a high level at this time of the year? I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. All right. Should be an interesting offseason. And it was great catching up with Coach Jimmy Lynam here on a Wednesday edition of the Sports Bash as the Sixers have a lot of soul searching, I think would be the way to kind of put it. And Coach, we always appreciate you jumping on board.
Always fun, Mike. Anytime, buddy.
All right, man. We will catch up with him when news happens this offseason. By the way, the Phillies had a 12-11 lead. Hector Neris entered the game, and I'm sure you can figure out how that ended. I'll leave it at that. It's 13-12 Nationals. Phillies were down 11-10. They went up 12-11 and now are trailing 13-12. Hey, don't shoot the messenger. By the way, Jimmy Lynam was excellent. The passion he brought at the beginning. Now, you might not agree with some of the stuff he said. He's not sitting here saying this is all Ben Simmons' fault. He threw. Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid, the core, they all played a big role. Why'd they lose that game? And he said, I don't want to act like I'm back in Ben Simmons here, but hey, they don't ask him to score. Something I've been telling you guys all. They don't ask Ben Simmons to score. Now, I would say I would place more blame in him not scoring. Because you score 4, you average about 11 to 12 in these playoffs. You can't score 4 when you average 11 or 12. You got to get me closer to that. Sports Bash live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. I don't know how the Phillies blew that game. It's not over yet. But I don't know how they blew that inning. They were winning. They needed. I mean, I guess I know. It's Neris. Neris was pitching. That's what happened. Sports Bash. Jeff Kerr's coming up. He was at Cooperstown the other day. Is that the mecca of Hall of Fames? I want to ask him. All right, Sports Bash. Thanks to Jimmy Lynham. He was excellent. I enjoyed that greatly. He brought a lot of passion and energy. Brought to you by your Delaware Valley Acura dealers. For great deals on Acura's award-winning lineup, shop online, DelValAcuraDealers.com. What's the best Hall of Fame? It's definitely Cooperstown. And Jeff Kerr was there. That brought up this conversation about, Cooperstown, Jeff, is a destination. No one's like, you know what, I want to go to Springfield. No. Yeah, I want to go to Toronto for the hockey. No. You have to plan to want to go to Cooperstown.
I got a funny story about the Basketball Hall of Fame. Now, I've never been there, Mike, but I was in Hartford for the NCAA lacrosse championships a couple years ago when Penn State made their run, and I didn't realize Springfield was 30 miles away from it. And me and my buddy are big basketball fans. Are like, that's how low we think of the Basketball Hall.
Yeah, you could be in Springfield and have no idea that the Basketball Hall of Fame is actually in the same city that you're in.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know what it is with the Basketball Hall of Fame to me. I just think they let too many people in. I swear, Andre Iguodala is going to be a Basketball Hall of Famer at this rate.
Oh, yeah. It's like the Basketball Hall of Fame. It's not an NBA Hall of Fame. It's too wide. It's too broad. They just let everybody in. It's, college. You're in while you're still coaching college. I mean,
yeah.
If they had an NBA Hall of Fame, they probably would be thought of a lot differently. But how was the Baseball Hall of Fame?
I loved it. I loved every second of it. We were there for 5 hours on Friday. It was completely phenomenal. The Babe Ruth exhibit was awesome. The Negro League section that they built is tremendous. The tributes they have to Jackie Robinson, Satchel Paige are great. They have a section now for women and for the Latino baseball history. It's completely awesome. The second floor was my favorite floor. And, the first floor was even better because that's where it has all the plaques in there, except they're missing somebody, and that's Pete Rose. They got to get him in.
Oh, they're missing a lot of people, like Roger Clemens, Barry Bonds. Now, so you did 2 days?
No, we did 1 day. But overall, I think we should have spent 2 days there just to spend time.
You can't do one. One, you're rushing.
Yeah, exactly. It was a day trip. We got there way early though, so we had plenty of time in there. But I think it was more of we were just. Okay, what to do now? And we know so much to do now in Cooperstown. We were going to make it a day trip, but next time I go, I'm definitely going 2 days.
Yeah, now, have you been to Canton?
I have been to Canton, yes.
All right, so that would probably be the number 2, right?
Yeah, so I've been to 3 Hall of Fames now. I've been to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the Baseball Hall of Fame, and the NASCAR Hall of Fame. I'm a big NASCAR fan. The NASCAR Hall of Fame, I actually spent as much time as I did in the Baseball Hall of Fame, just because and that's relatively new because of all the history and stuff. But the Pro Football Hall of Fame, I loved it. It was great. We took a tour of everything. But again, we were going to Cleveland that night. We were trying to rock so much stuff in one day. No pun intended, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But I'm sorry. I've been to 4 Hall of Fames. I was at that one too. But the Pro Football Hall of Fame, I would definitely do a weekend for.
I've been to Cooperstown, and I got to go back because I only went 1 day. We were in for the day, same as you, and was too fast. I didn't get a chance to kind of do the whole thing. And I was at the College Football Hall of Fame down in Atlanta when the Super Bowl was down there.
How was that?
It's really cool. It's funny because at first it was weird, like how it was kind of set up, and you felt like it was like this one floor and this one, and then you realize there was this whole nother wing. And we went and didn't realize that the Hall of Fame was like right where we were. We were doing the show on Radio Row, and we were connected to the Hall of Fame. Well, when we went in, we had to be on the air in 2 hours. So we didn't realize, and we went so late that we only got 2 hours to really walk through that place. But definitely was worth checking out. If you're a college football fan, there was a lot of cool stuff there.
Yeah, that'd be me. I definitely would like to go to the College Football Hall of Fame. One thing I did like about the Baseball Hall of Fame, and I didn't know if they would address it or not, Ty Cobb, Cap Atson, all the checkered past of a lot of their Hall of Famers, and just even mentioning it, I didn't even think they were going to do that. Like Cap Atson was huge toward segregation baseball. Same with Kennesaw Landis. It was one of those. I love how they went into the detail of that. I don't know if they just added that or not, but I thought that was a very important history lesson for.
I think as you mentioned, there's and if you go to the Baseball Hall of Fame, there are some artifacts of Pete Rose in there. And some of the guys who are kind of not in the Hall of Fame, but They do a good, like, that's one of the reasons why the Hall of Fame should be letting Pete Rose, Roger Clemens, Bonds in, is so that the Hall is meant to tell the story of the base of the league.
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, Pete Rose bet on baseball. We get that. We understand that. You still recognize him as the all-time hits king. You have a bat of him in there. You have a glove of him in there. You have one of his World Series rings in there. It's like, come on, like, just put the guy Roger Clemens. You have like about 5 or 6 artifacts of him in there.
100%. Yeah, I've always said, it's a museum. It's not heaven. It's a museum, and the purpose of a museum is to tell the story, and your story has a huge gap in it because you're not putting the story of a whole era in there. So that's one thing that bothers me about the Hall of Fame, the Baseball Hall of Fame, is that they are not telling the story of their game.
I agree. And, it was funny. When I was a kid, like, I remember when Sports Century came out with the 50 greatest athletes and Ty Cobb was in there. I didn't know, like, Ty Cobb was like such a terrible person and he manipulated his stats. And the Baseball Hall of Fame actually now mentions he manipulated his stats. And it's like, well, whoa, did he really hit what he hit? That's what I want to know. Like, did he pay people off? We don't know. We honestly just don't know.
Great story. It's a great trip. All right. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, covers the NFL, and he does other things. I guess I should add, by the way, the Phillies just lost 13-12.
Hector Neris stinks. I don't even want to get into him right now. And it's not even his fault. I'm not even going to blame the whole thing on him because they were up 5-0 in the 5th inning. So
they were up 5-0. They were tied. They went up 9-5, and then were down 11-9, and then went up a 12-11, and then Neris blew it. Now, I agree. I'm not like this Neris hater, though. The role of the closer in today's game, these guys all are just, who is a dominant closer in baseball now?
I don't mind Hector Neris, the pitcher. I mind Hector Neris, the closer. He hasn't been a closer for 4 years, and yet they keep trotting him out there. It's like Ben Simmons in the jump shot. Oh, we're just hoping for him to turn it around, and it never happens.
Yeah, I get that. It's just they don't who else is going to close? Every other guy they put in today blew the lead too.
Exactly. David Hale. Why was David Hale in the game at all? He's given up, 2 grand slams this year or something like that? I watch every Phillies game. Some of these guys, I just want to turn off the TV when they come in.
It's just a horrendous loss. And with the Sixers done and Eagles training camp is like 35 days away, here's the Phillies chance to come in, and they have absolutely fallen in their face twice.
I was hoping that the Sixers would go to at least early July to kind of cure me until Eagles training camp starts. I'm on vacation. I was having a great time. I was hoping to have a deep Sixers run in there, go to some games, enjoy myself. Sunday night was a blast until the game started.
I know. Well, I kept saying, Jeff, I kept literally saying the same thing was, hey, look, do I want the Sixers to win the title? Absolutely. But if they just got to the finals and that thing went, 4, 5, 6, 7 games, you're going into like mid to late July, and Eagles training camp is on the 27th. You would literally have the NBA taking you right up into, here's a handoff to the Eagles. It would have been perfect. Now, I would imagine the NBA calendar is going to change. You're not going to get this again.
No, from what I'm hearing, Michael Cassie may know more about this than I will, way more about this, but I heard it's going to go back to regular time. Like from mid-October, I guess the regular season would start, and then have the playoffs start mid-April, et cetera, and then you'd be done by now.
Yeah, I think that is what they're pushing for anyway, and I don't know that everybody's on board with that. So I don't know if it's 100%, but I think that's what they've at least suggested. They're trying to get this thing back on track. Obviously with the COVID situation, the timeline got so knocked off that they're trying to get this back on track. But I kind of like having the games on right now because other than that, all you're getting is coaches pitchers pulling their pants down with the umpires checking their gloves.
Oh, exactly. And I'll say one more thing about the NBA too. I love how the Suns are making the deep run because I've adopted the Suns as my second team because of Mikal Bridges. I covered him in high school, been following his career since, big Villanova fan. So again, Mikal Bridges, I pretty much watched nearly every Suns game this year, and I've been hyping them up for months and months and months. So now that the Sixers are done, I really want the Suns to win the whole thing.
All right. A lot of talk. I want to get a couple quick NFL thoughts, especially. I think I want to get your thought on where the Eagles' offense could be with Devonta Smith. You have heard a lot recently here. Oh, people comparing him to Marvin Harrison, Isaac Bruce. I was trying to think of who said it. Isaac Bruce came out the other day, said he reminds a lot of Marvin Harrison. You're starting to see a lot of people who are saying what I've seen from this guy. So if you get a dynamic player, I don't want to say dynamic, but I guess the question I have is, do you see him being numerically, I'm not comparing the player, having that Justin Jefferson 1,200, 1,400 yard, or is he more a volume player, a lot of catches, 800-900 yards, that kind of guy?
I'll tell you what, Mike. I think 1,000 yards is a definitely attainable goal for him. That he's going to be the number one wide receiver on this ball club, and I don't think it's going to be a long learning curve for him. It's not going to be like Jalen Reagor. I think he's going to be one of those guys. He comes in there, 5 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown right off the bat. That just reminds me of the type of player he is, and he's just going to keep getting better as the years go on. And he was like this at Alabama. He would have played his freshman year if you didn't have Henry Ruggs and everybody else that you can get. Wasn't he with Calvin Ridley at one point?
Yeah, he was.
Calvin Ridley was what? Rookie? Yeah. He was with Calvin Ridley. So there was.
Yes.
Yeah, he was with Calvin Ridley. So he's with Calvin Ridley. He was with Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy, all those guys. Like, he would have played his freshman year, and he did play his freshman year. Essentially, he caught the game-winning touchdown pass in the national championship game against a very good Georgia defense. So why can't he do this in the NFL? He's going. I think he's going to make an instant impact for them. I think he'll be one of those guys. Like, I think 70 catches for 1,000 yards is definitely in the ballpark for him.
It's interesting to, I'm really interested to see how Nick Sirianni utilizes him. Does he use him as like his number one guy? Does he spread things around, or is he going to kind of lean on him as, hey, we're going to build the offense around you? Like, is he we're going to build the offense around you type of wide receiver?
I think he is. I just don't think they're going to use him like that, at least right away. I think he's going to be the playmaker, though. I think he's going to be that guy you rely on third down, or that guy you need to make a big play. And this is where I kind of like the Isaac Bruce comparisons, because I can see it. Like, he can be a home run threat if you want him to be. If Jalen Hurts has a strong arm, he's going to catch a lot of deep passes. But I think the way Hurts is groomed as a quarterback, I think we're going to see more of like the 10-yard outs, or, like the 5-yard slants with Devonta Smith, and he turns a 5-10-yard gain into a 20-30-yard gain. I think that's the type of player we're going to see from him, at least this season.
How is Dallas Goedert, let's say Ertz isn't here, how is Dallas Goedert's role different?
Well, him as the number one tight end is going to be very intriguing, because I feel like he's going to get more of a target share, honestly. I honestly could see him like as a poor man's Travis Kelce, a very good blocker who gets a lot of targets in the middle of the field. And after he catches the ball, we're not going to hear about this yards after the catching anymore. It's going to be more of, he catches the ball, he breaks a couple tackles, makes a couple plays, finds a way to get himself a little more open than Zach Ertz does. I think that's one thing Dallas Goedert could do. You remember the Cowboys game in 2018, December 2018, when Goddard had that 75-yard touchdown catch? That's what I think Dallas Goedert brings to the table. Just a lot more big plays than Zach Ertz does.
I was talking about this the other day. So, Ertz is, one of the best pass-catching tight ends
ever.
Are we suggesting that Goddard can actually be more productive?
I don't know if he could be more productive, but I think you're going to see more of that big play potential with it. Zach Ertz is what he was. He was a guy, you threw him the ball, he caught it. And he always seemed to make big plays for it. Asking Dallas Goedert to take over for Zach Ertz and replicate that production is borderline insanity at this point, because of the bar Zach Ertz has put. This is the guy who caught the game-winning touchdown in Super Bowl 52. Honestly, Mike, if you can get a 60-catch, 800, 900-yard season out of Dallas Goedert, I'll be more than happy with that.
Oh, I think that's, in today's game, you can get a George Kittle or a Travis Kelce, but if you're getting a run from your tight end or a year from your tight end that you just mentioned there, I think that is it's a huge bonus.
I think the ceiling for Goddard is top 3 tight end in the league. I think he can be behind Kittle, Kelce, and Waller. So maybe top 4. But overall, I think he's a solid top 10 tight end when it's all going to be said and done. He won't be like Ertz where you'll consider him with the big guns.
All right. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports. We've got 34 days until most training camps all open on July 27th. I think all of them except for the teams that play in the Thursday night opener and the Hall of Fame game, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So the Cowboys start, I think it's the 24th. I got to double check on this. I know the 27th is when pretty much everybody goes, but I think Dallas and Tampa are the 24th. I think Pittsburgh might be the 22nd, something like that. They're earlier. I know that.
All right, man. Well, I'm glad that you got to the Hall. That was good to I love when people get there. It's a must hit.
I'm going to another place tomorrow. I haven't been there in 11 years, but again, this is what I do on vacation. I go to a lot of baseball-related stuff, and I'm going to Yankee Stadium tomorrow. It's not the old Yankee Stadium, but I still like it.
I was there the first year was open. I have not been back.
Yeah, we're going early. We're taking the train in. I never seen the new Monument Park, so we're going to do that. Get there really early. I'm going with a bunch of Yankees fans. It's going to be a good time.
All right, man. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports. All right, brother. Take care.
Sounds good. Talk to you.
Jeff Kerr here on the Sports Bash. The whole Hall of Fame experience, it's one of those things where if you've never done it, you got to do it. But my advice to you would be give yourself 2 days to do it. Get 2 days out of it. Don't try to fit it all into, like, he said he was there for 5 hours, which is good. You almost have to do 5 one day and then do it again the next day. It's like watching the movie for the second time. All right, the Phillies blew that game today, and people aren't happy about it. Does a loss like that bring wholesale changes? Probably not. But probably should. Sports Best brought to you by Matt Blatt Nissan. The all-new Matt Blatt Nissan is now open on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township next to Home Depot. Online, MattBlattNissan.com. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Best live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. We'll close it out next. All right, we'll finish off today's show with our sound of the day. Here's one for you, though. We always seem to blame the managers and the coaches, right? That's a big theme in sports fans, right? They always love to it's always the manager, it's always the coach's fault. Remember this comment when you think about blaming the manager the next time. Joe Girardi has won a World Series, and Gabe Kapler has the best record in baseball. Just take that in. Do with that what you'd like.
And David Hale pitched a game today.
Well, that doesn't really theme with what I just said about the manager being blamed. But
David Hale pitched, and that's a big reason why the Phillies lost today. Joe Girardi didn't throw a pitch.
He did put David Hale in the game.
He did.
But he did say
so would have any other manager probably.
That Ranger Suarez was not available, yada, 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 yada. Okay. But just that's what I'm saying. We want to blame Joe Girardi. I see people blaming him. And I'm not saying that Girardi's great. I wasn't a big fan of the Girardi hire. He's whatever. He won a World Series. Right? He won a World Series.
He does. He has a ring.
He has a World Series championship as the manager of a baseball team.
He was a manager.
So do with what you want with that. And by the way, Gabe Kapler is the manager of the best team in baseball. So that's all. I just saw Twitter's reaction today. Girardi, look, they make a lot of decisions. To me, the baseball manager has more of an effect on a game than the NBA coach.
I can agree with that.
So I do say the manager has more of an impact in baseball than the NBA coach does night to night, game to game there. The NBA is a total players league. The baseball, you can have Mike Trout and not be a good team. You ain't going to have LeBron James and not be a good team.
That's correct.
All right, Jimmy Lynam was passionate today.
The 76ers lost Game 7, plain and simple, because Kevin Herter was by far the best offensive player in the building. Correct. Kevin Herter, who 3/4 of the people listening right now never heard of before this series started. The Sixers played tremendous defense, believe it or not, in that game. But to quote Doc Rivers, they were horrendous at the offensive end.
He's not wrong. I would say Kevin Herter kept getting matched up with Seth Curry, who did not play tremendous defense. But is he right? Kevin Herter beat the Sixers.
It was definitely part of it. I think, Mike, one of the things we overlook is that, with all the Ben Simmons obsessing that we've all been doing over the last, 48, 72 hours, we overlook the fact that the team lost the game. Not the individual, a team lost the game. And you know what? If Kevin Herter is outplaying a guy who could have been the league MVP and a guy who could have been an all-star this year, that's a bad sign.
It's a pretty sad sign, to be honest with you. We always like to have this blame chart. Who do you blame the most? I could easily say if Ben Simmons just shot his free throw percentage of the regular season in the playoff, they would have swept the series. I think, his misses typically add up to how many points you lose by, right? Do I think Ben Simmons was the number one reason why they lost this series? No. I definitely think what the coach said, though, is that, and I've said this before, but he kind of agreed with me, is that it's kind of sunk into the subconscious of the other players that Simmons wasn't playing well.
It dragged them down.
It dragged them down.
Yes.
Jimmy Lynam.
He had 8 turnovers, 3 of which he threw to the other team, like starting our fast break. Come on, give me a break. And in Tobias's case, I don't care what you're running. All of a sudden, Tobias is free under the basket for a layup that you're going to make literally in a CYO game.
Yeah.
Please, it's 3 stone-cold open layups. It's in Game 7 of a series in the NBA to send you to the Eastern Championship.
Very tough on Tobias. And he mentioned Joel, 8 turnovers. I think we discount the 8 turnovers sometimes, but a lot of the turnovers are, I don't know. Are they mentally because he's tired, turnovers, that kind of stuff?
Look, I've been saying, and I was flipping out about this on Monday. The turnover issue has not gotten better with these players. I don't understand what it is. I don't understand why it is, but you can't blame Brett Brown anymore. Brett Brown's not walking through that door. It's the players who are making these stupid decisions. And I don't know the full reason why, but I know it has to be fixed. It's unacceptable.
Yeah, that is a kind of, when he brought that up about, Joel, and then I'm thinking about he threw passes, and I was there. You're just like, what are you doing? I don't know if it's because he's tired. I don't know if he's, trying to do too much because he understands that, offensively they are challenged in the playoffs because of, the fact that they run everything through a 7'2" man, which is not normal in this league. So I don't know. I don't know if he presses,
Even if he does press, someone needs to take him aside and tell Joel, just run the offense. There is an offense. I see them draw up stuff on that whiteboard.
Well, I don't know that means they're, like he said, why are you assuming you're calling a play? That's what Jimmy Lynam said to me.
Why am I assuming they're listening to the play? You were at the game for Game 7, but on the television side, they had one of those track segments where they showed Doc in the huddle, and he's giving them specific instructions. He repeats it 4 times, and they didn't listen. So at what point do we realize that maybe these players, they're just maybe a little thick-headed?
Well, this group, I think that's what the thing is. This core group, I think, much like the Phillies today, okay? You have Gabe Kapler and Matt Klentak. It was all their fault. And now you have 2 proven winners. Dave Dombrowski won a World Series. Joe Girardi's won a World Series. And the team looks worse. So do we constantly hold accountable the wrong people? The common denominator is the players of this Phillies organization have been the same core for 4 seasons. Have a great night.